What's going on, folks? It's your boy, the Stimpyland. We're back for another video. Today we're going to be, I'm joined by my friend, Liam. Yep.
Hello.
He's right here, or right here. I'm not sure where I'm putting him yet. Today we're going to be ranking all 25 of Pixar's currently released feature-length films. We're not looking at fucking planes. We're not watching that movie. To give some introduction, I have seen all of these movies. Well, for me, this is my second viewing of most of these movies. I believe for you, Liam, this is your first viewing of a lot of these movies.
This is my first viewing of a lot of them, yes.
You've seen some of the classics a bunch of times, like I have as well.
Yeah.
The reason this is my second viewing is because I originally was going to make a top 24 Pixar films, but video was done and I was editing it, and I didn't really like the way it was coming out. I actually alluded to this video's existence back when I made a little quick video, which I'll probably show, where I was talking about a copyright strike that I got. This video would have been the nightmare to make. And I decided I didn't like it, so I stopped it. And now, with Turning Red, I figured it was a good time to revisit all these movies. I decided also for a different format. We're just ripping off Red Letter Media.
Pretty much.
We're ripping off Red Letter Media's
format
for this. We're going to just make two. We made two lists, and we're going to compare them. I believe everyone here already has heard of them. Shout out to them. They're going to be swimming in views after this video. This is the big break that they finally needed. The last thing I want to say before we begin, Liam and I are both of the opinion that Pixar generally has seen better days. There are some exceptions. Yes. We disagree on some things. We disagree on a few things, actually. We'll be talking about that. But we're not going to pretend that Toy Story 4 is a good movie or something like that. We're not going to pretend that, Turning Red is the greatest thing in cinema. And if that kind of stuff bothers you, you should probably just turn off the video now.
Get your little milky bottle and go sit in your crib.
By the way, I forgot to mention spoilers galore for the movies we're going to be talking about. So there are timestamps in the description. Skip ahead if we start talking about a movie that you haven't seen.
Alright, everybody, to start off this list, we're going to begin with the very bottom at number 25. So, Michael, what do you have for 25?
For number 25, this movie was this was a hard win. There were a few movies that were really competing for the bottom spot, but I had to give, and this is a very controversial opinion, I imagine, but I had to give it to Toy Story 4.
I can see why. I definitely, after us talking a little bit, I understand why you went with that.
I feel like you probably saw that one coming.
Yeah, but anyway, my number 25 is actually, maybe unsurprisingly to a lot of people, Cars 2.
I saw that one coming. I knew it was Cars 2. Obviously, it was Cars 2.
There's not too much to be said about Cars 2. It mostly is. It obviously it has nothing to do with the first movie at all. Everything that the first movie sets up, the second movie just ignores. And then it decides. Pixar decided that they wanted to make Maida the main character for some reason.
The most fucking annoying character
he is
in their entire filmography.
So insufferable. He's so insufferable.
Like a good neighbor, Mater is there.
Cars 2 was the movie that killed Pixar's reputation. They had some slip-ups before. Cars 1 was... We'll probably be talking about that soon. That's not a super critically loved movie. A Bug's Life is not dearly beloved. But Cars 2 was the first huge critical flop that they made. It's kind of crazy watching it. It's really weird because you compare all the other movies previously to Cars 2, and Cars 2 is a stupid little retard baby movie. It's really dumb.
It is. It is a huge misstep. I think you mentioned before that Cars 1 was an honest mistake. It was Pixar thought they had a really good idea, they thought they had something cool, and it's just, it's kind of middling. It's just it's whatever. But Cars 2 is not a genuine mistake. Cars 2 is a completely, totally terrible misstep. They couldn't see the forest for the trees. And there are some little things I noted in my notes. Obviously, I was saying that the movie completely ignores anything from the first movie, when, Lightning McQueen, at the start of Cars 2, he has 4 piston cups, even though...
Look at those trophies!
You look. All I see is a bunch of empty cups.
I know Doc said these things were just old cups, but
to have someone else win it just didn't feel right, you know?
But fuck the first movie, am I right, guys?
Yeah, exactly.
Am I right, audience? And then he winks.
The score was fine. Michael Giacchino's pretty
Basically,
good,
the
generally.
only positive thing I'll say about the movie. Sorry to interrupt.
The score is fine, but the soundtrack is terrible. I wrote down my notes. Michael Giacchino probably wasn't in charge of like actually picking the licensed music, but I can't attach anybody else's name to this, so I'm doing
Robbie
bit
Williams,
of
you can attach him.
Okay, yeah, okay, so yeah, Robbie Williams bumped into a white teenage girl and accidentally swapped the soundtrack for her road trip mix CD.
You know what's funny? I know the crappy white girl song you're talking about. That was by Weezer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was Weezer.
And yeah, the only other compliments I can really give this movie is that like the car sound effects sound pretty like decent again.
Decent production
You know, all,
value.
like, yeah, exactly. Like yeah, the animation is like fairly good. There was one thing that made me laugh when Mater is like eating or when he gets the big plate full of wasabi or whatever because he thinks it's pistachio ice cream because he's hilarious and stupid. But the little Japanese car says, my condolences in Japanese. And I like that made me chuckle a little. The only other thing I guess I'd like to mention about Cars 2 is that the credits music is fucking abysmal. It's so bad. It's just like the worst, like, Imagine Dragons, Chainsmokers, like, crap I've ever heard in my life. It was so
Bangers
terrible.
and mash. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, they're literally... Yeah, the song is A Collision of Worlds, so they're talking about, like, what do you do?
We say words
meat and
differently.
potatoes.
That's the
We
whole
say
song.
meat and potatoes. Oh, we say bangers and mash. Oh, we say policeman. Oh, we call him bobbies. It's like, ugh.
Last thing I want to add that's really funny, because I'm probably been showing some clips of this movie. The reason that all of the in-movie text is in Spanish is because I actually am learning Spanish. It's not because all of the torrents of this movie have Spanish text for some reason, because nobody cares enough about this movie to maintain like a proper version.
I was ready for mine to be in Spanish, even watching it on Disney Plus. I was like, oh, dude, if this is in Spanish anyway, that'd be fucking hilarious.
Unfortunately, they cared. Oh
Yeah.
shit, that sucks.
Okay, so moving on. What do you have for number 24, Michael?
For number 24, I have The Good Dinosaur, which I'm sure makes the bottom of a lot of lists.
Ding, ding, ding. If for everybody watching this video, if you could comment the word updoot and then put an X, put updoot X, and then however many movies we have that match up, that and you put that in the comments. Because yes, my number 24 is also The Good Dinosaur.
This movie is kind of baffling. I don't intend to dwell on this one for too long. You know, we didn't dwell on Cars 2 for too long. These are the movies that most people are in agreement that yeah, these movies are shit. They're not very good. This movie in particular is just so weird with the tech demo-y aspect of it, which I just don't understand. It was kind of driving me crazy. Just some shots in this movie, I don't know why they infuriated me so much, but just, I could just hear like the faggy developer commentary track, whatever, where they're like, we had to spend 30 hours when Arlo slowly gets out of the water to make the water droplets drip down him. You know, it was just like,
Yeah.
I don't get, like, this is such a meaningless shot that you could just remove this shit from the movie. The Good Dinosaur, it takes 50 minutes for anything in this movie to, like, anything actually worthwhile to happen. It takes fucking 50 minutes. It's ridiculous. It's insane.
Yes.
If this was the movie that Pixar unleashed to the world in 1995, they probably wouldn't be around today. Or at the very least, they would not be loved as much as they are.
Well, yeah, I mean, we matched up on this one, which I'm happy to see. I'm looking forward to how many movies we match up on. The movie doesn't have a plot structure at all. It just moves from spectacle to spectacle so that they can show off all their cool, you know, we got to put him in a lightning storm to show off our rain and lightning like
effects.
simulations. Yeah. We got to throw him in a sandstorm, or we got to throw him in like a flood. Yeah, they just have excuses for putting the characters in situations so they can show off how fucking awesome their weather effects are.
They didn't do this in the first Toy Story. The Toy
No.
Story was the movie they unveiled to the world in '95. How insane is that technology? A feature-length film. They didn't do that.
They didn't care about stuff like that.
Well, because they
About the
realized
story.
that people don't give a shit. Like,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
average moviegoer, your mom does not care about the amount of polygons. You know, she doesn't care. She cares about, like, a funny story.
Yeah, it's shown early in the movie that Spot, the little human, I wrote down his name is Spot, and he acts like a dog, very cool and subtle. But it's shown earlier in the movie.
Totally forgot that until just now.
It's shown earlier in the movie that he can swim. He's swimming in water, and Arlo kind of watches him and
dog
self-teaches
paddles,
himself. Yeah, when they're in the flood, he can't swim anymore. They just said, we need you to be in danger, so you forgot how to swim. All of the dinosaurs, especially Arlo, are like incredibly fucking ugly. Like just their designs in general look gross and shit.
That movie is so uncanny.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. That was a shit movie.
Moving on. What do you have for 23?
For 23, I have Cars 2.
Okay.
Which we already know.
23 for me, I have Monsters University. Yeah, so for Monsters University, I think we both hate it for pretty much the same reasons. And a lot of people probably would as well, because we didn't need a Monsters, Inc. prequel at all. And the way they went about doing it was just terrible, because it's full of retcons and shit that doesn't make any sense at all. Like,
you've been jealous of my good looks since the 4th grade, pal.
Yes.
It's like a passing joke, but it's still like, it was in the first movie for, like, somebody wrote that and decided to add that joke to kind of, you know, develop their friendship. Like, they've known each other for a really, really long time. They're really good friends. But then when you get to Monsters University, they're meeting for the first time in college. Sully is like he's like a jock, like douchebag for some reason.
To me, what really stung was the bad characterization. Because first of all, these characters are nothing like the way that they are in the final movie, and I feel like they don't really end up there. This was the movie I expected to be the bottom. This was the movie that I kind of expected to be at the bottom.
So did I
list.
initially.
Yeah, and then really it was just a couple that kind of I had to be like, no, this movie's worse. As much as I don't like this movie, it's not as bad as these.
Nuts. Like, at least this movie, it's not good at all, but this movie tries to have... It tries to be
story.
A movie. It tries to
like
have
an
a
actual
story.
movie? Yeah. It's not a good
it's
one.
Not good. It's not good, but it tries to actually have, like, a narrative with, like, characters that go through changes and shit.
This movie looks and is written like an Illumination movie. I really don't like the just super bright colors and, like, quirky character designs. It doesn't look like the original film at all. The original film had a nice, cool color palette. It was warm when it needed to be. It was colorful. It was dark when it needed to be, where this movie is just really, really bright. Like I said, it looks like Illumination, and it's written like an Illumination movie too. It pissed me off so much when I first watched this movie, where Sully shows up, and his whole moment is, what is it? It's just, here are all my character traits, you know? Or it's like, oh, I'm lazy. Just all he needed to do was look at the audience and go, did I happen to mention I'm an incurable prankster? You know, that's all that you need to do. Same thing with Mike Wazowski in the beginning. Oh my god, feel bad for this character, please. Oh, the kids are picking on him. Look at how cute he is.
I wonder if he ever gets to be a scarer in the future. I wonder if there's a movie that goes over the fact that he is not really a scarer, and he's better at, like, training and kind of orchestrating that sort of stuff. Why are we having a prequel entirely focused around teaching monsters how to scare and get screams? Like, you make a movie where the ending is like, ends on this like happy note. It's like, oh, you don't have to scare the shit out of kids anymore to get power for the city. It's actually a lot easier to just make them laugh.
Yeah,
and that's like a wholesome...
That's another thing that, you know, in Monsters Incorporated, ultimately they kind of realize, oh shit, you know, we're scaring the crap out of these poor children. It's really sad, you know. He has that moment where he's just devastated by what he's doing. He sees the effect. The effect is immediate. He sees what he's doing. And then Monsters University is just like, yeah, you know, we end on the high note of all the children being traumatized for the next, like, 5 or something years before Monsters thing happens. I don't know what the time gap is. I don't care.
And then you got references like Roz is there with the CDA, which they never comment on. You'd think they would know that in Monsters, Inc. as well then, but they don't.
Guys, I needed to understand, I don't know why Randall squints his eyes so much. Why is Randall squinting his eyes all the time? That doesn't make any sense. Oh, it's because he wore glasses! Ooh. Great, thank you. Thank you for that, PIXAR. Oh my god.
But yeah, there's shit like that, and then there's the abominable snowman showing up and saying like,
I'll have you know tampering with the mail is a crime punishable by banishment.
Shut the fuck up, Donnie.
Hey, you guys remember the original movie? Wasn't that awesome?
Yeah.
Just stupid.
If it wasn't for Monsters Incorporated, nobody would give a shit about this movie, and I feel like nobody cares about it now anyway.
The last thing I'll mention about Monsters University and how it is nullified and like doesn't matter at all is at the end.
Promise me you'll keep in touch.
They don't.
Yeah, they don't.
Okay, so Michael, what did you have for 22?
Monsters University, so which we just talked about. So there you go.
There we go. Yes, we just talked about that at length. So I guess we'll move right into, I believe it's your number 25. I have Toy Story 4.
So I realized throughout this discussion I got a little high on my hatred for this movie, and I don't think I adequately expressed why I just don't think it's a very good movie. So allow me to do that now. First of all, this movie should not exist. If you go back and watch Toy Story 3, if you saw it at the time, or if you go back and watch it now, you'll realize this is the last one. We don't really need another movie after this. That doesn't necessarily mean that Toy Story 4 has to be bad, because Toy Story 2 was not planned. I don't think Toy Story 3 was either. Toy Story 1 was supposed to be the only one they made, and then Disney requested a sequel. But with Toy Story 2, they had an interesting story that they really wanted to tell, and I think, I'm not going to give away the list, but I think they did a pretty good job. Toy Story 4, on the other hand, it feels like they didn't really have a story that was worth telling. It wasn't worth bringing back these characters. And on the note of characters, that is by far Toy Story 4's biggest problem, is it mishandles the characters terribly. Woody's entire kind of character motivation and arc through this movie goes completely against the arc that we were building over the previous 3 movies. If you watch those movies, nothing about those movies would lead you to believe that Woody makes the decision he does at the end.
Somewhere in that pat of stuffing is a toy who taught me that life's only worth living if you're being loved by a kid. And I traveled all this way to rescue that toy. Because I believed him.
Well, you wasted your time.
Buzz's entire character arc was completely butchered. He thinks he's a toy again or something? He doesn't know what a conscience is? It's really strange. And then the rest of the cast just have absolutely nothing to do. And that really bothers me a lot, because, movie making 101, everything in a movie has to have a point. I'm sure if you go back, watch your favorite movies, you'll realize they do this. The classic example is, if you see a gun on a shelf, that gun has to be fired at some point, or you are going to prey on the expectation of that gun being fired. And Toy Story 4's entire supporting cast do absolutely nothing. They do nothing at all. If the characters aren't doing anything, they shouldn't be in the movie. This is why Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3 shrunk the cast. But in Toy Story 4, Mr. Potato Head doesn't do anything, because Don Rickles, his voice actor, was dead, so they just recycled lines from previous movies. My brother pointed out to me that Rex has more lines in Kingdom Hearts 3 than he does in Toy Story 4, which is just... And I could go on and on. To me, I don't think they had a good story that was worth telling, and I think the reason they made this movie was, well, to make money. To me, Toy Story 4 is Pixar at peak cynicism. This is them at their most cynical. Every frame of this movie just feels so fake to me. I'm baffled that people defend this movie. I can understand, Grandma likes this movie. It's so nice to see Woody and Buzz again, but there are,
exactly.
critics that actually really like this movie. And if you like the movie, it's not a big deal. That should go without saying. But I can't stand this movie at all. I really hated it. Enough that I watched it one time, and I watched it for the first video. I watched it again in preparation for this one, and I was like, one time was plenty. Thank you very much. I could not watch this movie again. I got halfway through. I was just so sick of it.
My thoughts on Toy Story 4 are very similar. The other movies I just don't like less because they have a whole lot more shit that pisses me off. Woody leaving at the end doesn't make any sense, and Buzz, he's acting like he doesn't know that he's a toy anymore again for some reason. He thinks that the button on his suit is his inner voice. Even though he should know by this point, like, he's been played with a million times, you should know that that's just part of him. It's just like it's like Woody's drawstring, like he doesn't listen to that shit.
His entire character arc from, like, the first movie.
Toy Story 3 has a very definitive ending, and they definitely should have ended it on there. I guess to lightly compliment it, I did like the return of Bo Peep. I kind of like the way that she's handled. It's just, like, it doesn't make sense that Woody leaves at the end. That shit's really stupid. Oh, yes, something I want to mention, because I think you brought this up and I had it written down in my notes, is that the toys in this movie are, like, 50 times more careless when it comes to potentially being seen by a human.
This movie is just a stupid little baby movie. It really pisses me off. I can't talk about this movie much longer, because without just devolving into how much I hate it, because I really, really didn't like it. Remember what Buzz said in Toy Story 2? life's only worth living if you're being loved by a kid. Toy Story 4 is like, never mind.
Yeah, and Woody even says in this movie, in Toy Story 4, he says more than once, I'm pretty sure, the most noble thing a toy can do is to be there for a kid. And then he just abandons his own morals right at the end.
Because he found that plastic pussy.
He want, yeah.
Plastic, yeah.
He got cunt beaten, yeah.
Oh, and something else to say. Key and Peele, their characters are up there with, to me, Among Us, yes.
Sus.
They're up there with Mater and Arlo, all those other fucking annoying characters. They were so goddamn annoying.
Yeah, they were really bad. Next up, for 21, what did you have, Michael?
For 21, just barely making the bottom 5, because I had a tough time choosing, Turning Red.
Oh, okay. For my 21, I have Brave.
Kyle brought up something very good, my brother. He brought up something very good in a call where he said, Brave is like a Disney movie, like an in-house Disney movie without songs. And that is really, really true. This is the only time that I think a character has been taken from a Pixar movie and made a Disney princess. A general pattern that you will notice, if you watch the Disney, this is very common among the Disney Renaissance, as they call it, the 90s movies like Little Mermaid, Hercules, Aladdin. You will notice a trend with these movies where they take a lot of inspiration from musical theater. I'm going to be, glossing over this really quickly because this isn't the, point of this video, but basically, you have a very simple story, kind of fairy tale, very nice characters, they start to sing, right? And then, because just talking, that doesn't express their emotions enough, so they start to sing, and then singing, they don't express their emotion clearly through songs, so then they start to dance. And it turns into a whole spectacle, where you've got, like, a kind of cheesy, tropey story, but then, it turns into a spectacle, it's fun. That's the appeal of those movies. Brave is... You got the tropes and the boring shit of Disney movies, but you're missing the part that makes those movies fun for a lot of people. I don't really like those movies, but they have an appeal. They have an audience.
Yeah, exactly. That's why people like them, and I feel like a lot of people didn't really care for Brave because of that too. Like, people who would like stuff like that, like Frozen and... what's more recent ones, like Moana or like Encanto, I think is a recent one. Like, people watch those and there's like little song and dance, and so that's like appealing for like family crowds or like kids and stuff. But yeah, this movie just doesn't have that shit.
The surface level story is incredibly boring and stupid, and the deeper kind of meaning behind the movie, the thematic aspect is really confused. I still don't know what the point of this movie was, Whereas with Turning Red, I kind of got the point of that. I don't really like the point of it, but we'll get to that, I believe, soon. Brave, I feel like it's like legends are... I can't even remember all the shit. This movie is very forgettable.
Sorry.
Mordi! That's the most memorable thing in this movie. Memorable aspects of this movie. Here are the things that are memorable, not necessarily good. Their stupid accents.
It's just my boo.
Oh, Mom, it's just me boo. Like, all this way that they speak stupid, fake English. A child dies in school. That does happen in this movie. I did appreciate that. And can I tell you, like, literally the reason why I rank Brave higher than Turning Red is because Brave has the scene where the mom turns into an actual bear for a second, and that's actually kind of cool.
I do like
kind
that
of scary.
stuff. Yeah, Brave is kind of in a weird spot. It's a 21 for me, just because it's boring and bland and not memorable. Like, I don't like Turning Red, and that'll spoiler alert, that's coming up soon. But Brave is just such like a nothing movie. It's just like
it's really forgettable.
Yeah, it's so insanely forgettable.
I told Kyle, again, I was like, okay, I just watched Cars 2, so now I gotta watch Monsters University. And he was like, oh, you watched Brave? I was like, well, I was literally going to just skip over this movie because I forgot it existed.
On to number 20. What is your number 20, Michael?
Brave. Narrowly escaping the bottom 5.
Yeah, we just barely aligned. Oh, sorry, we just barely didn't align on that. Because my number 20 is Turning Red. Okay, so Turning Red is like if I have to look at my notes for a second because it's
That's
like
fine,
I wrote some. I wrote Turning Red is like if Scott Pilgrim vs. the World was written by a BTS ex-Naruto feminist trans right activist white girl with colored hair.
Okay.
That is my tag. That's what I pegged the movie as, because it was just mostly like all of the editing decisions and shit. It felt like it was super inspired by something like Scott Pilgrim.
That is something
like
that
comic
is,
booky.
Yeah, that is one thing in the movie that I actually did kind of appreciate, was just the use of the editing, and I think the use of color was pretty good as well. Use of camera, stuff like that. That was something that I did actually appreciate. That's why I almost put this above Brave. Like I said, literally the reason was just because I thought of a scene I liked in Brave more than anything in Turning Red, and that was it. I don't really like the character designs. We'll probably talk more about that with Luca. They didn't bother me as much here for whatever reason. Now, I think the thing to talk about with this movie, I think the thing that a lot of people are thinking about, there is a propagandistic element to this movie, I'll say, which, you know, we are not chumps. We are going to talk about it. There are, like, even like center-right people that don't want to discuss that kind of stuff, but we're going to talk about it. Well, actually, we're you know what? We're going to assume that, like, feminism and sexual liberation and all this other shit is just retarded. We're just going to kind of take that for granted in this discussion. Yeah. It should go without saying, don't show this movie to your kids. As a critic, you know, when I'm watching the movie, I'm looking for an interesting story. Obviously, I don't like that kind of, you know, the messaging of the movie. But if it's good, I don't really care. With Turning Red, it's like, this movie's not good enough to make me ignore that stuff.
Yeah, no, it really isn't worth it. I guess, yeah, a few other things I'll say, I guess. Because there was some, like, parts, you know, it's at 20. I like, there was the cooking scene with the dad where he's doing all the shit and it's, like, really shot really slickly and everything. It looks really cool. I think a Pixar movie about, like, ancient, like, Chinese traditions and stuff like that would be really cool. But the majority of the movie focuses around the main character May and her friends that want to get money together, raise money so that they can go see some shit boy band. Yeah, it's like they're teenagers, so they want to go see a boy band, but I just feel like it's not really a driving point that interests me at all. Like, I don't care about this. This boy band does not matter to me. Oh, this is another. This applies for Brave as well and some other movies, but I really hate the parental child clash. Like, oh, the parents have these expectations that they have set for their kid, and they have to do this one thing in life, and they have to follow these customs and traditions. And that shit gets so fucking tired. And for it to appear again in Turning Red, it's just like, dude, Pixar, you've done this shit in like 5 other movies. Like, I get it. You don't need to keep putting this plot in every single movie you make.
All this, there's stuff that May says in the beginning of the movie, and keep in mind, she says this stuff so that they can later subvert this. They can later say, oh, this is wrong, this is the incorrect thing she's saying. And this, like, actually kind of just made me, like, want to scream. It was, because it's ridiculous, where she says,
I know what it looks like. I am my own person, but that doesn't mean doing whatever I want.
They set that up. That's the wrong thing she's saying, you know?
Yeah.
Actually, being your own person means doing whatever you want and doing drugs and getting STDs and taking birth control pills. That's what it means. This movie has the fucking dumbest line in a Pixar movie.
Okay.
At the end of the movie, she says to the mom,
My panda, my choice, Mom.
Cringe.
Compare the ending of Turning Red to the ending of WALL-E. This was the same studio, bro! Another thing, I forget who says this. I think the mom says this to her. She says, in regards to the panda,
you only have one chance to banish it.
Which is clearly just full of shit and wrong.
No.
Because you see the family, all of them had to banish the panda or whatever, right? They all had to banish it, and they presumably only had one chance, except they did it again with no issue.
They did it again,
The mom turned into like a giant fucking kaiju monster or whatever, and then she just goes, that's fine, no big deal.
Yeah, and then at the end of the movie, May just gets to keep the red panda with no consequence at all. She just gets to have it.
The grandma says, if you keep using the panda, eventually you will be bound to the panda forever and the ritual will fail. But it seems to me that the ritual only failed because she's using it like crazy before this point.
She does.
And she continues to use it like crazy. But it seems to me that the ritual only failed because May voluntarily chose to keep the panda. So, like, you know what I mean? It's just, this movie's bullshit stakes. You know, this movie was very inspired by anime. It was inspired by Ranma 1/2, I believe Sailor Moon. I've never seen that. And those series, or Ranma at least, similarly, it had important rules that it would set up and then just knock down without any care in the world. So at least it's sticking true to tradition there. Last thing I want to say, because as far as some of the controversy, people are talking about the themes, you know, anti-tradition, blah, blah, blah. There are mentions of periods and pads in the movie, but it's not like, to me, I didn't care. I mean, like, it's dumb. I don't like, let's destigmatize everything. You know, I don't like that shit.
Yeah.
That didn't bother me so much. But basically what happens in the movie, she basically becomes a whore. She becomes a whore. That's literally what happens, right?
Well, yeah, because she
becomes a whore. She says she hustles the panda. And when I was watching this movie the second time, I was waiting for her to say, like, slut, prostitute, whore. I was, like waiting for her to say, to whore out the panda.
My panda, my choice, Mom.
Yeah, okay. Alright, well, next up, we got number 19. What did you have, Michael?
Number 19, I had Luca.
That's update number 2, everybody. If you're following along, that's update number 2. Luca is also number 19. Number 19, Luca.
My thoughts on Luca is that I didn't absolutely despise it, but I really didn't like it still. Luca was Pixar's attempt at a Studio Ghibli. This is my understanding anyway. I forget where I heard this. I couldn't find a source for it, so take it with a grain of salt, I guess. But
right.
This was Pixar's attempt at a Studio Ghibli movie. I watched a few Ghibli movies recently, and one in particular that I watched, which I mentioned to you a bunch, was Kiki's Delivery Service. And I think if anyone's seen that movie and then also seen Luca, or if you know about both movies, I think it's a good point of comparison. Because Luca has a very chill, very, like, low energy story. It's not like most of other Pixar movies. They're really deep and they're all about, like, life. It's about anxiety of death and, you know, blah, 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 all this stuff. You know, even the bad ones try to be very deep. Luca, by comparison,
they try to have a message.
Luca, by comparison, is very straightforward. Because I remember seeing a video where one person mentioned, like, Luca, all it is two kids getting a Vespa, and I thought it was a good thing. I liked that it wasn't deep. And I can see how, if you watch movies like Turning Red, which tries to be really deep, and it's just, like, the most shallow, stupid thing ever, especially shit like Toy Story 4. And then Luca could kind of be refreshing in that way, where it's a straightforward story. You know, Luca is not some weird metaphor for prostitution or menstruation, which is, you know, I can at least appreciate that, I guess. But to me personally, I like Pixar when they're deep. I like when they make movies that are about life and stuff like that. All my favorites are really deep, and without spoiling too much, I really, really like Soul a lot. That was the movie that they made before Luca. It's funny because that movie is really deep and it's all about life and all blah, 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 all that stuff. And then you look at Luca, and Luca is the total opposite of that. Which doesn't necessarily need to be bad. But I think Pixar, personally, is the wrong studio for that kind of movie. I think Ghibli, if he gave it to Ghibli, maybe even if he gave it to Disney, maybe even if he gave it to Disney's in-house, you know, they might make songs out of it. They might make it a little more fun. This is not the kind of movie for them. And I know that Pixar was very inspired by Ghibli, but this movie is lacking, you know, their charm. It's lacking what I really like. You could look at Up. Up was a movie that was also very inspired by Ghibli.
It's got that Pixar flair to it.
It's got that Pixar feel,
flair.
where he's reading the book and he, like, thinks about his wife and he gets sad, you know? Whereas this movie was really shallow.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add to it. I guess, because it is number 19, because I don't think this movie is, like, terrible. It's just not good.
Here's my, I guess, my contention. I think for a kid's film, this is a fine movie. But for Pixar, this is a weak showing.
Yeah, I would agree. It's like a Studio Ghibli movie, but it's also, parts of it are, like, dumbed down because it is, in the most literal sense, a fish out of water story. For Luca. I knew fucking frame 1 of this movie as soon as Alberto started talking and explaining where he lived and shit. I knew that his dad was either dead or had abandoned him. It's not even not even fucking, like, hidden at all. There's also a little bit of that disapproving mother shit that I didn't like. The kids trying to avoid water when they're first hanging out with Julie and her dad, and they're trying their best to not get water on them, and you see them, like, try to hide and stuff. There are some fun little sequences that they get out of that, which I think were, like, neat. The main villain was not. He was just, like, really really ugly looking.
That was intentional,
and also just
though, to be fair.
Yeah.
I think that was the point.
I guess he's supposed to be like an annoyance more than like an evil villain or whatever. Like, that's fine, but...
This movie is, by intention, very, very simple. It's Kiki's Delivery
Yeah.
Service is a good point of comparison, because that is a movie that is also very simple. There's no major villain, there's no huge plot. If you watch Luca, watch that movie, and you compare the two, and you'll realize what that movie does right and what this movie gets wrong. Kiki's Delivery Service is still a deep movie. There's a lot of depth to that movie. It's very simple. You can show it to a little kid, but there is a lot of depth. There is a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes in that movie, where with Luca, I really do not like the lack of depth to this movie.
We can add Luca to the list of Pixar characters that get cunt beaten at some point in the story. Okay, number 18. What did you have, Michael?
Number 18, I had Onward.
Okay, interesting. Number 18 for me was Cars. It's at 18, but I don't think Cars 1 is a terrible movie or anything like that. It's just here because I don't particularly like any of the Cars movies.
You also have an autistic hatred of motor vehicles in general.
Yeah, for the most, I hate people who talk about talk about nothing but like cars getting new rims and spoilers and getting the engine fucking like that shit. People start talking about that and my fucking eyes glaze over and into the back of my head and I want to fucking die. But there are still some really impressive qualities about Cars, like most of the sound effects for the cars. I know I mentioned it in
just
Cars
generally
2,
production value.
This is where it's
good.
Yeah. Really,
and
really
also,
great
if you
stuff.
compare the animation to their previous films, in terms of the quality,
Yeah.
it is a big step up. And I also think they do a lot of interesting stuff with the animation. I think that is the one aspect of the movie that justifies it being an animated movie. I guess
Right.
this is the argument I wanted to make in favor of Cars, because I like this movie, but I don't think it's very good. It's not very far away on my list. Cars, to me, it felt like a very honest mistake. I can see their intentions with this movie.
Yeah.
Pixar were pushing themselves to do what they couldn't do before. And I feel like Cars was an interesting experiment for them. I don't think it necessarily worked out. If you look, the Toy Story, you got the RC car and you got stuff like that, but for the most part you have these humanoid characters. Some of them, like Monsters Incorporated, very humanoid, and then there's just a human in that movie. Finding Nemo is about fish, but even fish, they have those recognizable faces. Whereas nothing is more unhuman, and nothing is more uncharacteristic than a car. What is the body language of a car? How do you tell a story that's all about cars? And so they really tried to tell a story all about cars, and they tried to give it some interesting themes, which I like, we'll talk about in a bit. There's an attempt at romance and stuff as well, which I don't think went very well. We'll talk about that in a bit. It's like with Toy Story. It wasn't enough to just make a tech... they didn't make a tech demo. They tried to make a movie that really appealed to people. To me, I don't think it worked out, but I don't think it was all bad either.
For a lot of... I won't show it because that would show the rest of my list, but I actually made markers where I think, like, cutoffs are. Where I've got, like, oh, these movies are a masterpiece, and then these are fantastic, these are great, these are decent, these are fine, these are bad, these are terrible, this is Cars 2. So I had, like, markers for that stuff. And Cars is at 18, but it's in the fine tier. It's like,
That's kind of where it is for me, too. I think it's a fine movie.
Just on first watch, I actually had made a note halfway through because I wrote that, Lightning McQueen was like initially when he goes to Radiator Springs, he's like a sleazy fucking creep towards Sally.
Yeah.
Which she just, like, doesn't care about, and that, like, never comes up again. She's not, hey, you remember when you were talking to me like I was like a piece of fucking meat, even though they're cars, you know what I'm saying. I about halfway through, about an hour into the movie, I wrote down a note because I just thought, are they ever going to try to make the main fucking protagonist likable at any time soon? Because he's just an asshole for like the first half of the movie. And he does slowly work his way back and, you start to like him. But there's, like, a lot of the characters forgive him way too quickly and are just, like, nice. Yes. Like, they're like, oh boy, Lightning McQueen, he fixed our road. Great job, man.
The whole
That's
second act
awesome.
is very... second act, I guess, when he's in the town, that whole part of the movie is really sloppy. That they needed to spend more time on that. Like, especially the whole romance aspect of the movie is so weird.
Because, I wrote down, I think...
There's that meme shot of Sally where she's riding through the waterfall, and I'm just thinking, does Pixar want me to have sex with this vehicle? They want... This vehicle is sexy to them,
there is nothing that Pixar can do to make me interested in a romantic relationship between two fucking cars.
Yeah, to me, I think the movie would have been a lot better if it leaned into the fact that it's about cars. There should have been more racing. I think that's something that Cars 3 does. We'll probably talk about that soon. I like the fact that this movie has a really weirdly specific theme. The fact that roads appear and they dry up small towns, you know, because that's a real thing. That's not something that you would expect a kid's movie about cars to mention, you know. When you think cars, you think, oh, this is the stupid shit they made to sell toys. But there's this really interesting, like, theme going on, and I really like that a lot. That was something that I really appreciated about the movie.
Yeah,
I just
nice.
If they should have leaned into that more and less on the whole
they really should have,
romance
because I do
and, stuff like that.
I do like that whole sequence where they light up all the neon lights in the town, and you get that wonderful song. I guess as a brief mention, the soundtrack is like, it's like very middle of the road for me, because there's songs like Route 66 and other shit like that, which I know people like, but they don't do anything for me. There's a couple of like licensed music that I just don't like, but that one song that plays, you know, I think it's just called Life Could Be a Dream or something like that.
Shaboom, I think it's called.
Oh, it's called that? Okay, well, yeah, but that song that plays when they're lighting up all the neon signs in the town and stuff again, that's a really nice scene. Yeah, if they lean more into that sort of stuff, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more, other than trying to go for, like, this whole thing about being like a race car and like romance between cars and shit like that, and making friends with Mater, and because the only stuff of that I really like is like the Doc Hudson stuff. Whenever Doc Hudson's involved, that's when I'm interested in that stuff, just because that performance I think is really great. There
was a really nice scene at the end I actually liked. I thought that was set up very well. You know, where the king is not a huge character. He's like, oh, he's kind of the elder, you know. They kind of set that up early in the movie, but they're not like, oh, this is the theme of the movie, you know? It's not like that. Yeah. It's really subtle. I really appreciated that a lot. That was a very heartwarming scene.
Because initially when I was watching the movie, I thought they were going to let Lightning McQueen win. So, I thought he was just going to win. I was like,
they're just going to do that,
yeah. Because the whole movie is kind of, you know, you don't always have to live in the fast lane. He goes on like a cruise with Sally and they talk about that sort of thing.
I know Doc said they're just a bunch of empty cups, but it wasn't right to let someone else win. Yeah.
And then the only other thing I guess I'll compliment, one of the funnier end credits to a lot of Pixar movies, not usually funny, but I like the you know, Toy Cars story and then Monster Trucks Inc. Like that sort of stuff is like a fun little gag, and I thought they did that pretty well.
Nice John Ratzenberger moment. Yeah.
So we'll go next is number 17. What'd you have for that?
Cars. There you go.
Oh, well, there you go. Awesome. So number 17 for me, I have A Bug's Life. Yeah, this movie, it's just slightly above Cars for me. It was the second movie Pixar ever made, and so it kind of, there are some growing pains there because it's not as good as Toy Story by like a fucking mile. But there's some really good stuff.
By about like 10 list positions, probably.
Yeah, there's some great stuff in A Bug's Life. My favorite part of the movie probably is like Hopper and that whole thing, even though Kevin Spacey, you know, nowadays, yikes.
I mean,
he plays the role really great.
Hey man, the ants are terrified of Kevin Spacey, you know? Can you blame him?
Yeah. Kevin Spacey as the main villain Hopper is like really great. I love the whole scene where he's talking about, you know, how ants, while one of them is small, you know, he throws the seeds at his friends.
That scene is great.
I love that scene. That scene is really great, where he shows that while one of them fighting them wouldn't be a big problem, but if they all realized that they had strength in numbers and they kind of went in on them all at the same time, then yeah, they'd be pretty fucked. I love the whole scene where it's raining and the way that rain is depicted.
Yeah,
it's like little like bombardments, like missiles like dropping from the sky, exploding on the ground. That stuff is like really, really cool. And some of the circus bugs are fun, but yeah, I think I didn't like the main character at all. I'm not really a fan of Flick. I'm no disrespect to like the voice actor or whatever, because I think he's been in some other stuff and he's fine, but just the main character to me wasn't very interesting. The romance between him and Princess Ada,
that was
not very
forced.
Interesting.
I will give you
that.
Yeah.
Super forced.
I guess I'll give this away. It is not too far, but it is a bit higher on my list. I actually like this movie quite a bit. I think it has a lot of charm, but yeah, it's weaker compared to like their other stuff, especially the stuff around that period. I tend to go easy on it because it was the second movie. The fact that Toy Story was the first movie Pixar made was insane. If this was their first movie, I would be, you know, way more forgiving.
Yeah, exactly.
I think people in general would be forgiving of it. I would be like, oh, of course this was, you know. A Bug's Life feels like it was driven a little bit more by the technology than like the need to tell a really interesting story. I think they told a good story, but to me it was, how many ants can we get on screen? That was kind of the point. But they still tried to tell a story. It wasn't fucking Good Dinosaur where they just
No, exactly.
Oh, the RTX ray tracing, blah blah blah. You know, it wasn't like that. They do fall back on a lot of tropes, like the romance between her and Ada and Flick was very forced, as you mentioned. You know, Flick's whole kind of character arc is very cliche. There's the whole moment where they find out that the warrior bugs, we'll get to that. They're not really warriors, blah blah blah. Oh no, you know, like all this stuff. That whole 15-minute sequence was just kind of, you have to have a scene like that, you know, they establish, oh, the warriors are not actually warriors. That has to come up again, but the way that it was done was very clumsy.
I guess, yeah, I don't have a lot of other things. There are, like, some minor, like, compliments and other stuff that I have, you know.
Ready to talk about the most interesting thing in this movie? I'm curious.
I am ready to talk about the most interesting thing in this movie, which I would like to just say straight up to the camera.
Yeah,
if you ever watch...
you will never be able to watch this movie again after you know this, just a warning.
Yes. When you watch A Bug's Life, listen to Princess Ada say the word... Listen to her say the word warrior. You'll notice that the voice actress that they got to voice her is Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who is probably best known for playing Elaine on Seinfeld. And almost every occurrence in the movie where she says the word warrior, she says warrior.
Warriors.
And yeah, if you watch A Bug's Life, you're not going to be able to not hear that anymore.
You're not going to be able to pay attention to anything else that happens in the movie.
Yeah, you're going to hear it, and you're going to notice that shit. It's like they didn't go for a second take. They weren't like, hey, can you enunciate this a little bit more?
It's probably her, because I believe she's from NYC, so it's probably her accent.
Yeah.
The Warriors.
But yeah, A Bug's Life, it's a fine movie. I don't think it's anything particularly bad or great. That's why it sits at 17. It's in what I've determined fine.
Fair enough.
So then moving up, we have number 16. What you got?
For number 16, I have Incredibles 2.
Ooh, okay. So number 16 for me, I have Cars 3.
We both agree that Cars 3 is a better movie than Cars 1. To me, personally, I think Cars 1 is a more interesting movie, both as a part of Pixar's history and as far as the themes of the movie goes. And I find that movie more memorable. But if I'm being honest, I think Cars 3 is a better movie, because the way I see it is, right, Cars really, they tried to tell an interesting story, they tried to have the romance aspect, they tried to have all that stuff, where Cars 3 just kind of, let's just give people what they want. I think if you're the kind of person that wants to watch a movie about cars for whatever reason, you're not going to care for Cars 1's weird rom-com-y dialogue.
What? Was it just a yeah okay, or yeah okay, or yeah okay?
You want a straightforward movie about this car goes really fast and he crashes and he gotta beat the guy, he's the electric car, he's gotta beat him, and he takes a rookie under his belt and they learn the power of friendship, blah blah blah. You want a straightforward movie like that. Yes. Where I think Cars 3 is a much less interesting movie. I think it's just, let's just give people what they want.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm inclined to say it's the better movie.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that same sentiment. The only big, like, narrative thing, and I know that they have to do this so that the movie makes sense, but, you know, I said I like the concept of, you know, the new kind of outpacing the old make of cars and stuff like that. But there really, if we're thinking logically in this world of cars, there really ought to be another, like, division for that shit, because you wouldn't have like a bus race on a racetrack. It's just, like, not the same sort of thing, and I feel like having, like, gas-operated cars and electric cars, I'm sure probably in real life there are different divisions.
You wouldn't have men compete with women in swimming competitions, you know? You wouldn't do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would be terrible.
I wrote down the word Among Us for this movie as well, because,
Okay. He's obviously an imposter.
Yeah, I really like the whole scene with, in Thunder Hollow, when they're at, like, that, you know, the mud pit. Like, that whole sequence is really, really great.
That should have been, where was that scene in the first Cars movie? That was great. Yeah. That was so much fun. While I was watching that movie, I was like, I would watch a movie about this. Hell yeah. This is great.
Yeah.
You know?
But yeah, no, then after that, Lightning McQueen's like a douchebag again for some reason. He reverts to that. He's like, you know, Cruise won, and she's like, wow, you know, I've never won anything. That was pretty cool. And he's like, you're a fucking idiot. Why? This is all your fault. And I'm like, it was your idea to go there. Owen Wilson says wow far more times in this movie than every other Cars movie, which is a big thumbs up for me.
That's good. That's always important.
I appreciate Doc Hudson lore, because he was the most interesting character in the first one, so I like hearing a little bit more about him and what he did. Lightning McQueen crashing at the beginning of the movie is fucking sick. The way it's shot and edited and everything is so good. And then I'll just, I guess the last thing I'll mention is Lightning McQueen does blackface. Yes, yeah, for number 15, what'd you get?
Cars 3.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, my number 15 is Incredibles 2.
I think you said I like half of this movie, not meaning I like this half of the movie, meaning I like roughly 50% of this movie. I really agree. This is a case of high peaks but deep valleys. And it treats even though I don't like the characterization in some areas, I think it treats the characters a lot better than something like Toy Story 4, where Toy Story 4 half the cast are just not in that movie. And in terms of the action, I think up to a point, Incredibles 2 has fantastic action. The scene where she's on the Elasticycle, all that stuff was sick. I really, really loved that. The way with the music. Oh, when he hijacks the live broadcast, I loved all those scenes so much. I was like, yes, absolutely, this movie is great. I think those scenes are so good. They come close to the first movie in terms of the quality, in terms of the energy, and just how awesome that is. But Incredibles 2 suffers a lot in some other ways, and I think the big thing for me is the whole last act of the movie. That part of the movie, to me, it falls apart so much, and I was just kind of stunned by it. There's this line that drives me absolutely insane that I alluded to earlier. You know, keep in mind Incredibles is the movie where you have dialogue in the first movie like,
they won't exercise restraint because you're children. They will kill you if they get the chance. Do not give them that chance.
That's shit. That's sick. In Incredibles 2, Jack just, no resistance. He just floats towards Elastigirl, and then you just cut to Evelyn's reaction. She just goes,
Super baby!
"Oh, super baby!" And that actually made my brain explode. I was like, oh my god. I don't know why. To me, that just kind of epitomizes how much it falls apart there. Because I don't know why. You know what I mean? You have this escalating tension where it's really like a deep, interesting movie. It's like the first movie. It's, got just it's dark. It's, it's for adults. You know what I mean? And then Incredibles, at the last act, it just turns into this this Baby Geniuses movie. I'm like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah, no, I know. Because I really like the stuff earlier on. I like Bob taking care of the kids and struggling with all that stuff. That's it's pretty easy, pretty easy to write and make scenes for that sort of thing. But it is nice, little role reversal from the first movie. Instead of Bob being the one to go out and do it.
Some people complained about that, but that's actually something I really liked. I liked that kind of role reversal, because to me that's kind of the spirit of The Incredibles is. What is it? It's cliche to mention this at this point, but the fantastic and the mundane, just the mundane aspects of life, just having to change diapers, shit like that. I really liked that.
Yeah, and I guess you already kind of mentioned this somewhat, but yeah, the stuff with the Screenslaver. The Screenslaver is a way more interesting villain to continue in the movie than it is to reveal that Evelyn is, which is it's pretty obvious from the beginning of the movie.
It is
when
the
you
most
see,
obvious twist in their entire
when you see Evelyn and what's the guy's name?
Winston.
Winston.
Saul
when you see
Goodman.
Evelyn and
I just call him
Winston,
Saul.
it is clear from the get-go that one of these people is a villain. The Screensaver would have been a much better villain, and the only other thing that I don't like surrounding that is that Elastigirl or Helen takes way too long to figure that out when it should be a lot more obvious to her.
It's obvious to the audience. It should be obvious to her.
She's sitting in the room next to Evelyn. She just says it out loud. She's oh my gosh, Goblin is Nilbog backwards. I just said that the wrong way around, but either way, Nilbog is Goblin backwards. Holy shit. I'm not a huge fan of Jack being an invincible, like you said, it's like Baby Geniuses. I'm not a huge fan of him just being invincible, he just can't be harmed.
Half of the last fight is them shepherding him around.
Yeah.
Compared to the last act of the first movie, which I know is a high bar, but what the fuck? It's so stupid.
The new Supes feel more like a fan club than actual serious superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to use I'm gonna you're not gonna know what the fuck I'm talking about here, Michael, but if you know, you know. If anybody has watched Kick-Ass 2, a lot of the superheroes in this movie feel like the superheroes in Kick-Ass 2, where they're just there's a guy who's just a lawyer, but he puts on a suit and has a baseball bat. He's I'm fucking Captain Gravity or some bullshit. That's what these superheroes feel like. you know, it's just like stupid, like, yeah, they just like came up with a costume in like 2 seconds and were like, oh, I get electricity, or yeah, I throw up lava. It's like they're really gimmicky and like, and there was kind of things like that in the first movie, but they were more used as like jokes, like heroes with capes and shit like that, right? Next up, we have number 14. What do you have for 14?
A Bug's Life.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Number 14 for me is Toy Story 3. I was actually fairly pleasantly surprised watching this movie again, because I don't think I'd seen it for a number of years, and I was always kind of like lukewarm on it. I knew that it shared a lot of similarities with Toy Story 2, and it still does to some extent, mostly in the form of Lotso. He is very, very similar to the character of the Prospector in Toy Story 2. Yeah, it's really like a copy and paste job. But there's a lot of other really great stuff in the movie. I was like, yeah, pleasantly surprised to see it again. Yeah, it's like just above like the middle of my list because I enjoyed it. There are some like minor things that bugged me, like at the beginning when the toys don't believe that Woody is telling the truth when they say, Andy was trying to put you in the attic. Like, they really should trust him at this point. There's, they've been two other movies together.
In Toy Story 3, there are a few plot contrivances that kind of creep up
to make the movie happen.
To me, some of those are okay, because Toy Story has kind of always been about that. Like, if you look at the end of Toy Story 2, it's like just totally ridiculous, where they go to the airport and, they happen to find the body, like all this stuff. Like, it's just totally ridiculous. Like, so many coincidences are happening there. That's kind of the heightened reality of Toy Story. I mean, it's about talking toys, But Toy Story 3 does, to me, represent just generally weaker writing than previous movies. There's one shot in particular that I always laugh at where Mrs. Potato Head is looking back into the room to see, like, Andy, and Andy is pantomiming because she can't hear, so Andy is comically pantomiming, like, oh, my toys were right here, oh my god, Mom, how could you throw them out? He's like moving his hands around so much, and it's just like... And
they believe Mrs. Potato Head. They're like, oh my gosh, Woody was right.
To me, Toy Story 3, I think, where it gets a lot of things right over Toy Story 4 is it uses its characters very well. It drives me crazy that half the cast are just in Toy Story 4 and they don't do anything. Jesse's entire motivation as a character is poking a hole in a tire. That's what she does. Buzz is just a retard for no reason. He doesn't do anything. He meets Key and Peele. That's what he does. That's what Buzz does in the movie. Yeah, this movie, I think, uses its characters really well. There's the whole prison break sequence where every single character has a little thing they could do. Some people don't like Mr. Tortilla Head. I love Mr. Tortilla Head.
That's fine.
I thought that was really funny. I really like that, Toy Story 1, you watch that, came out in 95. Toy Story 2, 98. Right. Andy's a couple of years older, but he's still a kid. But, he is growing up. Toy Story 3 is 11 years later, and now Andy's, like, going to college and stuff. They actually got the original kid, or at least I believe they got the original kid from Toy Story 1 to come back and voice him in Toy Story 3.
Yeah.
There is one shot in Toy Story 3 that I love so much. To me, it's genius, and it just kind of really shocked me when I watched it, because I had seen this movie already, but I was just like, oh my god, I just realized what happened was, it's such a simple shot where he looks at Woody and then he looks at Buzz, and then he throws Buzz in the trash bag and he puts Woody in the box. And that scene by itself doesn't seem so special, but when you consider that was essentially, right? That is the entire conflict of the first movie. Andy is, like, grown up. He doesn't give a shit about toys anymore, so this is just a totally not sentimental decision he makes. He just looks at these two toys, which are just basically like, oh yeah, this is stuff I used to play with. He just throws one of them in the bag with no emotion, which is just like, damn, that really hits you, bro. It's like, wow.
When I was a kid, I was, like, for sure convinced, even watching the movie now, I always feel like, it feels like this is gonna happen. It doesn't. But I always felt like Woody was gonna, like, wink at Andy right at the end when he's holding him and he's about to give all his toys to Bonnie. I always feel like, he's gonna, like, smile and be like, haha. But he doesn't do that.
Thank God.
And then the other thing is, it is, I believe, post-credits, but it is absolutely fucking insane that I think it's Ken writes a note addressing, like, Woody and Buzz and all those toys. He writes a note, puts it in Bonnie's backpack, and then the toys get it and read it, which is fucking crazy that, like, if either Bonnie or Bonnie's mom had seen that, like, I just imagine a scenario where Bonnie's mom, like, takes that out of her bag and is like, who the fuck's Ken? And why is his handwriting like so good for being like 4 years old? You know. Other than that, I don't really have much else to add. I thought it was I enjoyed it a lot more than I expected to. Now it's at the top of where I have the markings. It's at the top of decent, which I would have probably called it bad a couple of years ago. Next up, onto number 13. What do you have for 13?
For number 13, I have Finding Dory.
Okay, my number 13 is... This might be the first surprise. My number 13 is Onward. This movie was like pleasantly surprising for me. I would even go as far to say as I thought it was a good movie. Like, there's a few things, like a few little like nitpicks here and there I have, and I'll get into that. But I generally kind of just I enjoyed a lot of like the world building. I like the premise of like magic slowly dying out because technology is a lot easier to use. It's more convenient. It's more readily available. So I like that whole thing. And I think that they use the characters pretty good. I think the two brothers are like developed fairly well throughout the movie.
I did like that aspect of the movie. Yeah, the brotherly relationship.
The different spells and stuff that he learns to cast to kind of get to, you know, the point where they're trying to get to make their dad whole, which is cool, by the way. Their dad being like a, you know, just like
I like that.
Their dad being just a pair of legs is like really like that's a fun like unique little aspect of the movie, and they get some like good, you know, visual gags out of that, which I liked. But yeah, all the spells that Ian learns to like use and stuff, it's cool seeing that stuff because then it all comes back at the end of the movie when they're fighting the big cursed dragon. And I like that whole sequence too. I like that it kind of takes the school and uses that to like form its body, and then that like green dragon head that you see on the side of the school, nice. It shows up about 3 or 4 times in the movie, and then it gets a payoff when it becomes like the face or the head of the dragon. So I thought that whole sequence was cool, and he uses all the spells that he's learned in that sequence to fight it, where he's like walking on thin air and stuff like that, and he's like levitating stuff, and he's speeding things up. Like he uses like all sorts of, you know, those wacky abilities and stuff. As for the stuff that I didn't really like,
I have more things to say about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, for me it's just a couple things. I think it's a detriment to the film that it thinks that it needs an antagonist. Like at one point in the film where it's like not their stepdad, but like their mom's boyfriend.
Yeah, you really didn't need that, I think.
You didn't need, yeah, like, the movie was fine as it is, because at one point he just finds them in like the middle of some fucking field, and then he calls back up and 5 cop cars show up in the middle of nowhere in like 2 seconds. Yeah. It's like, what? Where the fuck did this, what? No, yeah, that's like my biggest criticism, and I'll let you go on and talk about what you want, and I'll make sure that we cap off the discussion of this movie with
I know you're
something else, yes. Yeah, cool.
I don't know, to me, I didn't like Onward nearly as much. I was positive on it my first viewing, and I don't hate the movie at all. And in fact, I don't mind it. I don't mind the movie, but I really didn't think it was that great. I don't know if this is just something in my brain, but I feel like I've seen the epic journey, epic quest in like a modern world with technology. I've seen that before, and I just feel like it wasn't super interesting here.
It's definitely not groundbreaking.
I feel like this movie has a joke of ancient mythical thing reinterpreted as a modern thing. I feel like it uses that joke a lot, and it got old.
Yeah, I can understand
I've thought that I really liked probably my favorite scene in the movie was the Manicore's Tavern. I really liked the whole Manicore's Tavern sequence. That was pretty funny.
Whoever said you have to take risks in life to have an adventure? Apparently, you did.
I didn't think Tom Holland and Chris Pratt were great for those roles. Like they're good actors. I think they're fine, but I guess to me personally, their performances really didn't do it for me. Also, there is one other thing to talk about. There is one performance I did really like.
Yes, because I was going to say my favorite character in this movie is their mom, who I believe her name is Laurel. This movie came out in 2020. 2020? Right, 2020.
It was the same year as Soul, yeah.
Right.
This movie got slept on so hard. It was unfortunate.
Nobody fucking saw it.
Because this was as soon as like the fake COVID shit started happening, you know. It was like, we got to close everything down, you know. Yeah.
22 years previously, Pixar hired somebody to voice a character in a movie. That person was Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Warriors.
So she plays the mum in Onward, and she does a really great job. Like I said, she is genuinely like probably my favorite character in this movie.
The Warriors.
Literally 3 minutes into the movie,
the Warriors.
One of the very, very first things she says, she's watching like a workout tape, and they say something on the workout tape, and she repeats it, and that is, "Let me hear you
to my New York ears, I hear warrior in that scene.
It's not as vague as it is in A Bug's Life, but it's just strange to me because she says it 2 more times in the movie too at the end. This must be like some really fucking weird, obscure like inside joke with Pixar. Like that, somebody there
warrior correctly.
Somebody there thinks it's fucking hilarious that Julia Louis-Dreyfus can't say the word warrior, and so she's only in 2 Pixar movies, both of them.
This was the missing link that makes the Pixar theory work, and we finally discovered it. And they thought that nobody would discover that, but we did, right here.
Yeah.
Aren't you glad you're watching this video?
We cracked the case on that one. The fucking Julia Louis-Dreyfus warrior inside joke at Pixar that connects all of the movies together. But other than that, yeah, her character's really great. Like, I like how she's actually, like, really involved in the plot. Oh, also, I like the sequence where the brother sacrifices his van. I like that whole thing. Even though it was a little bit contrived for... Ian tries the lightning spell to hit the rocks He tries that 3 times and then gives up, which I was like, you got time, bro. You could, you could try to cast it a couple more times. I don't know if you'll get it, but you might as well try it, but... In the end, the brother, yeah, he fucking sacrifices his van. I thought it was really good. I liked it. Yeah, there was just like a lot of really cool stuff. I have problems with it, obviously. It's at number 13. It is in the dead middle, smack dab in the middle of a situation, overlooked by fools.
I'm thinking now, that is quite a bit different. It's, I didn't even hear what you said. On my list, it's number 18, so, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Smack dab in the middle of a situation, overlooked by fools. And it is overlooked. Yeah. It is it is a very overlooked movie. Like, I think it's not their best movie ever, but it's fun. Like, I'd watch this again, just like by myself if I felt like it. Anyway, we'll move on from that though. We're on to number 12 now. So what have you got for 12, Michael?
Number 12 is Toy Story 3.
Okie dokie. Number 12 for me is Inside Out.
Yeah, Inside Out is an interesting movie because this was a movie that people really, really loved. I am kind of convinced that the reason people really loved it was because Pixar was in like the trenches. They were doing The Good Dinosaur and they were doing Cars 2 and Monsters University and all this shit. Like, they clearly were not where they were before. And then they come out with Inside Out, which is pretty good. In fact, this is like the first of the movies that I think like this is a really, really good movie. It's not perfect. I really, really like Inside Out, though.
Okay, fair enough.
I enjoyed it on my first viewing, and on my second viewing, I enjoyed it even more. I love the aesthetic of this movie, the texture of everything, the use of color. I thought it was just great. I like that this movie doesn't have a villain. So many Pixar movies fall back on, or just Disney movies, or movies a lot just fall back on shitty villains, and this movie is just entirely driven by characters. I like the moral of the movie as well. I thought that was really sweet, the whole, I think Keemstar has said a few things about this movie, actually.
Dude, go in the corner right now and cry. You deserve a good cry. You deserve it. You earned a good cry.
I liked Inside Out. It's at number 12 on my list. I thought it was a fine movie. It was the first time I'd ever seen it, and I used to have a very negative opinion of it without having seen it, just because it was touted as like the most unique and original Pixar movie in years.
I think I've touched on why that might have been.
But yes,
in years are the operative words, because this is after Cars 2.
There have been other movies and shows and media where it explores like emotions being kind of like a caricatures inside somebody's head,
shameless rip-off of Meet Dave, Yeah.
It's not like the most wholly original idea ever, but it didn't need to be, and it does enough unique shit that I liked anyway. Like, I like the whole mechanics of the world, how there's like personality islands and the core memories contribute to that sort of stuff. I really enjoyed all of that stuff. When I started watching the movie, I was getting a little bit hesitant because I was thinking, if the character of Sadness continued to be the way she was at the start, I was gonna be pissed off. I was gonna be like, "Fuck! I really don't want this."
I know what you mean with that. To me, I know the scene in question. That didn't bother me so much because I guess, and this is potentially a problem, but I was kind of reading into the metaphor of sadness when you're a kid and it first appears in your life. It's very unlikable and it's very annoying, and it just worms its way into situations where it shouldn't be there. Where you're trying to think about something nice and you just get sad for no reason. And I was kind of reading into that, and that's how I kind is that. Which is why it didn't really bother me that much. But I can see how that's potentially an issue.
Yeah, because character-wise, in like a story, it's annoying to have a character who's like told like, hey, just like stay over here and chill out for a bit, and then she's like touching the core memories and stuff. It's like, you're just like doing you're being fucking disobedient on purpose, and it's just like, fuck you. That shit really annoyed me. That doesn't keep up, which I was happy to see. There aren't really a lot of emotions represented, and I can understand you don't want too many cooks in the kitchen. You don't want to have a different character for like every feasible human emotion. I didn't need more characters for that, but there could have been maybe that each character is assigned or has a little bit of wiggle room with what emotion they represent, because then you can represent things like mood swing. Because in the movie it just feels like it happens out of nowhere, when Joy is like controlling everything and she's happy, and then it's just like sadness touches the fucking orb, and then she's just like, she's talking about her family, and then she's just like crying out of nowhere. The reason that is because Joy does seem to convey some more emotions than just I'm happy all the time. Like she can, you know, she's grieving when Bing Bong dies. Rest in peace, Bing Bong. Yeah, I still overall liked the movie quite a bit. I liked the tunnel of abstract thought. That was really great, you know. When they're being reduced to the mere idea of like just being shapes, like I like that whole sequence. Visually, it's really fun.
I do want to mention that this movie was directed by Pete Daxter. I told you that, and that kind of made you, you know, made you a little more interested in the movie when I mentioned that.
Yes.
I think we kind of discovered, we were looking at who makes the movies, and generally
there's like three.
There are a few names that when you see them, it's usually a good sign.
Generally, Brad Bird, Andrew Stanton, and Pete Daxter are being involved. Usually, for the most part, it means that the movie will be at least somewhat good. Yeah, if we're done with that, we can move on to number 11.
Number 11, I had Inside Out. There you go.
Oh, well, awesome. My number 11 is Up.
People really, really like Up. We don't rate this movie as highly, but we both like it, and I definitely like it more than Liam does. But I will say, Up, to me, does represent a turning point in Pixar's filmography, where I think Up and Toy Story 3, if you watch them, I think the writing in particular is not quite as strong as it was before. I can't quantify it exactly, but there is just a general decrease in quality. Part of that might just be because, you know, this followed up WALL-E, which we'll talk about later. WALL-E was also a movie that Pixar wanted to make for a long time.
Yes, this is the first Pixar movie, other than Brad Bird doing his stuff on his own, because Ratatouille and Incredibles were just his ideas. But I'm sure a lot of people are probably familiar with the famous lunch. It was like a lot of the bigwigs Pixar that were like leading the movies, and they had like a lunch where they came up with the concepts for 6 movies: Toy Story, A Bug's Life, Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, Cars, and WALL-E. So yeah, it was 6. And Up is the first non-Brad Bird movie and non-sequel that is after that.
That is not part of that arrangement. Up is the start of, you know, there's a lot of really good stuff in Up, but to me, it's just not as strong as the previous movies.
I agree for the most part, yeah. It's at number 11. It's just outside the top 10. Because I consider the top 10 for me, I consider all 10 of those movies to be like, these are fucking great, and I would recommend them to almost anyone. I do like a lot of the stuff. There's like a lot of like jokes and stuff that I wrote, and some like, you know, things like this. But I won't go into those too much. Generally, like, you know, I'm very much against nowadays the idea that like the first 20 minutes are like great and then everything else is shit.
I'm glad you agree, because I remember you said that.
Because there is some great stuff in this movie. I like the dynamic between Carl and Russell. Yeah, it's like a very different format of like the buddy comedy sort of thing. Yeah, because they're so far apart in age.
That's why I like Russell. I don't mind that he's, and I understand people can find him annoying, but I just love Carl's reactions. Like I like that you're seeing this annoying kid for the annoying little kid that he is. You're seeing him through Carl, you know, who I love the choice of Carl as the main character. Man, honestly, there's the part where he hits the guy over the head because he's like just clutching his mailbox and he runs inside, and you just see like him looking through the windows, and that makes me feel like so bad for him. You know? The ending of this movie makes me tear up when I watch it, when he gives Russell the Ellie badge, the soda pin from the beginning of the movie, where I'm just like, oh man, cute. That like really got me.
I really like the old men fighting scene towards the end.
They
appropriately fight great. Like old men.
Any last words, Fredrickson? Come on, spit it out!
Well, one of the things I have as like a negative that I don't like is that the high-pitched dog voice is not anywhere near as funny as the writers seem to think it is.
When I was little, that was the funniest thing in the world.
Yeah, when you're like a little kid.
Now, it's not that. Like, it's
it
fine.
Goes on for a bit too long, and then it comes back as well, and my camera keeps fucking adjusting because it's shit. It's really not that funny, and they use it a lot. It's not like a major point against the movie when I come up with stuff like that. Because overall, I really like Up. I thought it was a really like heartwarming, endearing movie with a lot of wholesome stuff in it. I really enjoyed it. Alright, so on to number 10. What did you have for 10?
For number 10, I had Coco.
Ooh, okay. My number 10 is Soul. This is perhaps their best, most recent movie, if I could say that, I guess.
To me, this was the best movie they released since WALL-E.
Okay,
so I've given away where that is on the list, but yeah.
Okay. I've watched it a couple times now, actually, because you recommended it when you were doing your original list for this. But yeah, I knew I was going to like it watching it again. I think it's a really great movie. The only real problems I have with the movie are, and I think you have repeated this sentiment as well, is that it is set in New York. And because it tries to have
this is like honestly a petty thing, but to me, I really don't like the setting of New York City, you know, because it's about life being beautiful. But if you've ever been to NYC, because I have, and all I have to say is don't go. If you've ever been to NYC, it's a fucking shithole. It's terrible. You never want to be there.
For the most part, other than like that stuff, I have a lot of really good things to say about the movie. Obviously, it gets into the top 10. I have from 10 to 4, I consider fantastic, and then from 3 to 1, I consider masterpieces. There's a lot of really cool, visually interesting sequences as well, especially when Joe is first going.
That's what's so important. It's about how you use animation. Right?
Exactly.
That's something that The Good Dinosaur didn't understand. It's not about how detailed the animation is. You have to do something with it. And Soul, I loved the animation in this movie so much. It was awesome. Because it's so different for Pixar, but it's still fresh, it's still interesting, and it still feels like them. I loved the score for the movie. The score was great because it's Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. And don't forget John Batiste.
Yeah, the whole, you know, with the youth seminar, like there's that stuff that just like really visually cool, like going through that and the mechanics of how that works in the world. And I love the idea of, you know, people who are still alive kind of getting in the zone when they're really, really into and like they're focused on something that they're doing. And I like how, you know, that's kind of twisted into people who stay in the zone too much, where it changes from being something they love and they focus on and they're in the zone and they're doing it.
An obsession.
It turns into an obsession, and that's when they become a lost soul. And those things are like really conceptually really fucking cool.
This is everything I want Pixar to be. This is the direction I want them to go in. I want them to make movies like this. You know, they should have different themes, they should have different ideas, but this is the kind of stuff I want to see.
And the only other negative I think I'll mention, and I know this is something that didn't bother you too much, but I really think that the Jerrys and everyone at the Afterlife of the Youth Seminar, whatever you want to call it, them giving Joe another chance to like just live on Earth, to me, I understand the theming of it, but I think it does cheapen the sacrifice that he makes for 22. She's like, you know, Joe, you know, if you give me this, you know, you're not going to be able to live. And he says, you know, I already have. You know, I've already had my shot. At the end, the Jerrys are just like, yeah, but 22 was hard to get put on Earth, so good job. You get to live anyway.
I understand it. Hey, she's been there for literally thousands of years, you know.
Yeah.
She's been there since Archimedes, which is funny. You know, I can see why they would do that. I like Joe's redemption. I like that he gets to go back on Earth. But I think that they should have handled that scene a little differently. I think it's a little too silly, where they're just like...
They do just show up and they're like, here you go, here's Earth, here's the Earth portal, you go ahead.
What is it? Because also, there's the whole thing with Terry, who's like...
Yeah, correcting the count, and it's like a slapstick joke.
That also brings me into this is one of Pixar's funniest movies. It's really funny. The whole thing with what is it, Terry, when she accidentally traps that guy from the barbershop.
Yeah.
Seriously, stay away from those processed foods.
Oh, I guess I should mention, this resonates with me quite a bit. When Joe is talking to his mum about, while gigging and being a musician, it doesn't have job security. It doesn't have like all of these benefits and stuff like that. I think his mum says, you're not even going to be able to like put food on the table. You're not going to be able to eat or something like that. And he's like, well, if I'm not like playing music, and I don't want to eat.
Yeah, damn.
Repeat after me.
My panda, my choice, Mom.
And that resonates with me a lot because I'm myself a musician. I like to write music and play it and stuff like that. And yeah, to me, it's not about making a career of stuff like that. It's not about having a safe job to rely on. It's that, well, if I'm not doing that, like, I don't want to work in some office job. I want to do this thing that I love.
This movie is very relatable. I really like that a lot.
Well, that's Soul, unless you have anything else to say about it.
I'm good.
My number 9... Oh, wait, what's your number 9, sorry?
My number 9 is Up.
Okay, so you had Up at 9. Number 9 for me is Coco. Initially, a while ago, when I first watched Soul, I would have considered Soul a better movie, but that was also because the last time I saw Coco, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, and I watched it I was paying attention to it, but kind of in and out, because I was watching it when I had my nieces over, so I gotta kind of pay attention to them as well, and plus I'd like go help my mum with something for like 5 minutes or something like that, right? So I wasn't attentively like glued to the screen watching it, and upon rewatching it, I fucking love this movie. I think Coco is absolutely fantastic. I think it's great.
I like it a lot too, yeah. It's in my top 10.
It is almost, in a way, more about music than Soul is in some forms. Like, both of the... And something I want to mention real quick, the 2 PIXAR movies that are heavily ingrained in, like, music and wanting to be a musician and that sort of stuff are also the 2 movies that deal heavily with death and being forgotten.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting to me that they line the musician, death. they line those premises up.
They're trying to brainwash us. Yeah.
But no, I thought it was really great. I love the whole theming of Coco, the Dia de los Muertos, that whole shit.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not.
I really like that stuff personally. I love the weird kind of crazy world. It kind of speaks for itself. I can't really describe why it's so great.
It's very there are skeletons and shit, but they got the classic, like, a lot of them have like that sugar skull design on their skulls and stuff like that, which is prominent with Day of the Dead. The world of the dead, the land of the dead, is like so vibrant and like gorgeous and pretty. It's like so colorful and beautiful. My biggest criticism for this movie, and I think it'll be pretty big one for you, is that the twist of Hector being Miguel's real great-great-grandfather, that shit's pretty fucking obvious from an early point.
To me, it was when I noticed pretty quickly. I was like, I didn't put that together immediately, but when it happened, I was like, oh, duh. What kind of hit it for me was I felt like I understood pretty quickly this guy's not who he says he is. He has some connection to Miguel. I don't know what that is.
Rewatching this movie, I had a little bit of confirmation bias because I'd seen it before, so I knew that was the twist of it, obviously. But I think when you're watching it, maybe it's not so obvious, but just the very scene where he is trying to get over to the land of the living on Day of the Dead. Your picture's not on anybody's ofrenda. You can't go in.
Yeah.
And they really emphasize that, like, your picture's not anywhere. And it's like, okay, yeah. Well, I know where his picture's missing from now. But like I said, that is, like, confirmation bias.
I didn't like the twist of Ernesto de la Cruz as the villain. Like, I thought it was just... I mean, like, I get it, he's the villain. You have to have the villain like that, but I just thought it was so lame. To me, the way that was executed, where it's like, he's talking about, you murdered Hector just like this thing that you acted out in a TV show that just happens to be on in the background while we're talking, it's like, it's so stupid.
Yeah, that's pretty convenient.
I really didn't like that.
I don't mind him as a villain in the form of, like, being, like, an actual, like, plagiarist. That's kind of a unique thing to talk about, too, when you talk about, like, music or, like, an art format or an art form. Fucking killed Hector and stole all of his songs and stuff like that.
See, to me, he should have just been a plagiarist. I don't think he needed to murder him.
That's fair,
I get it. Like, it's fine. It's fun when you're watching it. But to me, I think if he was just a plagiarist,
I like some things they do with the fact that Hector is his great-great-grandfather, and he can't obviously tell him that straight away, but I like how hesitant he is. You know, he says like, oh, I'm going to play Remember Me, which is a great song, by the way, original song for the movie. And Hector is like, no, not that one. And he says it's because everybody else is playing it. Like, look, it's so popular.
And it is.
But also, he doesn't want him to play it because he obviously has a very sentimental connection with that song, which is for Coco, which that's what the title of the movie is not the main character's name. It is the main character's great grandmother.
Yeah.
I really like a lot of Hector's like visual gags, where he's like moving all his bones and like throwing, taking them off and stuff like that. All that stuff's really fun. I guess to talk about the music a little bit, yeah, Remember Me is a great song. So is Un Poco Loco. That song's fucking great. That song's really fun.
A little crazy, yes. That's
yeah. Obviously, the twist is fairly easy. The only other thing I'll mention is De La Cruz doesn't know that he has a great-great-grandson. That should really probably tip Miguel off that, like, maybe you're not my great-great-grandfather. Even though there's, like, those problems with it, I can, like, forgive a lot of that stuff just because the essence of the movie and the aura it gives out, the Day of the Dead theming and, like, all the music, that shit just, like, fucking blows me away every time I watch it. I really enjoy it. Just a little bit more than Soul. They're probably really close together, but I think the music aspects of Coco I enjoy a little bit more. I'm more into stuff like that than like jazz.
To me, I think I preferred Soul because I liked the more... I liked the world of Soul more. I liked the kind of introspective aspect of Soul. I felt like that was more interesting to me personally.
Yeah, that's fair. Moving on to number 8. What's your number 8?
My number 8 is Soul.
Oh, well, there you go. I feel like these next two are going to be a little bit surprising for you. So I have, at number 8, I don't have to turn the page very much for this, I have Toy Story 1.
It's insane how good that movie is.
For being their first one.
It is their first movie. It is the first ever feature-length, entirely computer-animated film, which means there's some awkward animation, but that's something that I will forgive them for totally. It does kind of make the movie a little awkward to come back to, especially when you see Scud, Sid's dog, that just looks like shit. What I like is that Toy Story is a good film. The technology is, it is just a tool being used to make a fun, interesting story. Right?
Yeah, of course.
Which is really, really important. That's why people that don't give a shit about animation, they love Toy Story. This is the movie that, like, really put them on the map. And it was interesting because I wrote about this in my first video. 3D was just this weird thing, like it's making like a 3D animated movie that just sounded so stupid. That was not something that anybody had tried to do on that scale before. When Toy Story came out, it was such a risk for that movie. Now, 27 years later, 3D animation is everywhere. It is seen as the safe option. That's like the cheap option, which is just kind of funny. We owe all that to Toy Story. It really, it's just an incredible movie. To me, I love it because it has such a specific feeling. It has such a specific vibe among Pixar's works. It's really unlike a lot of the other stuff that they've done. In terms of the comedy, it just has a totally different feel. You know what I mean?
What are you looking at, you hockey puck?
Woody and Buzz are just so much fun to watch in this movie. They are just great. This lightning in a bottle, having Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, like those two together, it's genius. It's really funny.
Their chemistry together is great. A lot of things that I wrote in my notes for this movie were a lot of stuff just about, like, it is the first movie, and so there are some animation, like, I wouldn't even say goose, but just some, like, not being super familiar with the technology. There's some, like, weird stunted animation, mostly with Andy's mom.
Yes, there's one scene, and I'll put it up now, that's really awkward.
So there's stuff like that, but there's also, like, clear orientation on all the toys, like, clear orientation of light sources, and, like, the army soldiers have, like, the little plastic shit, like, off the back, like, at their back and stuff like that. A lot of the toys have, like, wear and tear. There's, like, dirt and scuff marks on a lot of the toys, which is really great attention to detail.
Yeah, the attention to detail in this movie is fantastic.
Woody in Toy Story 4 looks, like, clean as the day he was made.
Yeah.
Whereas there's, like, clear, like, dirt and shit like that on him in Toy Story 1 and 2. And a little bit in 3. There's, like, certain characters in 3 that have it a lot. And I'm sure there's plenty of examples I'm sure you can find in 4. But it was just, like, a little less noticeable to me. The only other thing I'll mention that's not really a negative, but just something that's, like, they didn't really know what to do with this. And it's fine because they're not important, but it's funny to me when I rewatched Toy Story 1, I realized none of the mutant toys in Sid's room, none of them ever speak.
Yeah.
And And then after they do the whole thing where they scare the shit out of Sid by moving around and stuff, Woody and Buzz just run off, and Woody just yells like, "We gotta go, bye, thanks." Yeah.
Well, one thing to me that I find a little awkward, and I don't necessarily think it's bad, because I like the songs. You Got a Friend in Me is a classic. Everybody knows that. Toy Story 4 fucking killed all the hype that movie has. I mean, that song has. And then there are two other songs, Strange Things, which I know you like a lot. And I like that song too. It's pretty good. And then there's I Will Go Sailing No More, which I think that song would have been a lot better if you got someone else to do the vocals. I think Randy Newman's vocals would just sound too sleepy, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It is Growing Pains. You know, it is to me, that is like Pixar doesn't make musicals. You know, like a lot of their movies have a musical element to it, but just having some guy sing about how the characters are feeling. It felt like, oh, it's a kid movie, so we need to have songs, but the characters shouldn't be singing. You know, so to me, it's kind of awkward.
It's a classic. It's the first Pixar movie, so it definitely has those growing pains.
It is a certified hood classic, to say the least. You know, it's a must-watch. That's it.
Number 7, what do you got?
Toy Story 1. There you go.
Awesome. This is going to be probably one of my most controversial picks. For number 7, I have Finding Dory.
Yeah, so you have this movie quite a bit higher than me.
Yes. I think imagine quite a bit higher than most people would put it. I've seen like a lot of lists where people have it at like, which I completely disagree with, and I think you would too. I see people with it at like 23 or 22, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck?
To me, I have it at the top of the... I think it is the best of those later sequels. I think it's a fine movie. I don't think it's super deep. I think people have extreme reactions on both sides. Not saying that your reaction is extreme. I'm sure you have good reasons. I wouldn't have it in my top 10, but fair enough. Let's hear...
Yeah.
Explain yourself.
Going into this movie, I didn't have expectations on either side. I didn't have low expectations for it, but I didn't have high expectations for it either. I went in like pretty much as neutral as I could, because all I'd heard of that movie was like, it's a sequel to Finding Nemo. I don't know what it was. Something about like just the progression of the movie and the feel of it. I watched this movie, and by the end, I was like, I fucking loved it. I don't like it's kind of hard to explain. I've got a lot of points for shit that I really liked, and I do have some criticisms for it, of course. I like that the movie cuts to the chase pretty quickly. You start with Baby Dory, which is fucking adorable, by the way. I really like that.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like Boo from Monsters Inc., like the baby talk sort of thing, but it's done in a really nice way. It's not like annoying, which a lot of movies could have made it annoying. And she's saying, can you help me? I'm looking for my parents. And then as she goes on and grows up, she's like, hey, can you help? I was looking for something. Do you think you could tell me what that was again?
Yeah, damn.
She's like losing her, yeah. So that shit was like, that's sad. And then you have her eventually running into Marlin.
This is probably petty, but there's something that bothers me. I never was a fan of when, this is where she was, and then the first movie happened. You know, it was like, it's cool to see the movie again, but to me it's kind of cheap where, like, you see the boat from her perspective, and you hear the music and everything, where it's like, to me, you're kind of just pulling in the first movie. It's like, hey, remember the first movie was really good. I don't think that scene is super impactful if you haven't seen it. It's a sequel, I guess, but,
I think it works for me. I like the progression of her slowly getting older and forgetting what she's even looking for. And then she gets that... I really fucking love that sequence of just, like, the super fucking fast-paced, like, cuts with the flashbacks of her, like, remembering, like...
I do like that,
shit,
yeah.
I have parents, what the fuck?
To me, what elevates it above the other sequels is... I think it is very visually interesting. I really like that. There's a lot of very creative kind of effects, interesting animation in general that I think they really get a lot out of. When she thinks her parents are dead, it's like focused on her and the camera's moving around. You get that mirage effect. That was sick. Where it's like you get the first person perspective. You see her doing that. I was like, I really liked that.
The soundtrack is fucking great.
Yes, this is the first movie we're talking about. This is Thomas Newman.
This is Thomas Newman.
Yeah, who is, I think we both agree, I think he is probably my favorite Pixar composer. He did the score to The Shawshank Redemption, which is your favorite movie ever, so that's pretty cool.
Like I would say it's like the main theme for Finding Dory, with that like the ocean ambience and then the like that shit is like I fucking love that. That sounds like that is sex to my ears. I like the environment that it takes place in. Instead of like going across the ocean, they get to the point where they want to go first, but it's like an exploration of this like aesthetically
it's similar to Finding Nemo, but you have a totally different setting, and I like that.
Yeah.
I like that this movie to me felt like it's not just the same movie again, but it has a lot in common with the first movie. I think that's kind of important. I think this was good. It struck a really good balance. One thing that I will say, this is a criticism I guess I have. Well, I'm kind of unsure about this. I think this is why a lot of people dislike this movie. Near the end, Finding Dory gets very silly. It gets like really over the top. I can see why that might bother some people. To me, I'm okay with that because I don't want to just see the first movie again. Finding Dory generally has a lighter tone. It's sillier than Finding Nemo. I think it's appropriate.
And it's serious when it needs to be.
It's serious when it needs to be.
It never treats Dory and finding her parents as like a joke.
Yeah.
It treats that serious. Like, she wants to find her parents and she's pretty serious about it. Yeah.
But I can see why that might not sit well with some people.
I can understand that. But yeah, for me, it was like totally like, I love that sort of stuff. The absurdity of it at the end kind of makes the climax more interesting to me, at least. But one thing I'll mention, because that was, the octopus driving the truck at the end of that.
Oh, yes. I love that character.
I really love all, like, pretty much all the side characters in this, like the newly introduced characters. Because when I look at something like Incredibles 2, like all the new superheroes, couldn't give a shit. If I look at Monsters University, all the new, like the Uzma Kappa guys they try to introduce, couldn't fucking care less. But I like most of the side characters in this movie a lot. Predominantly Hank. Hank is like,
wait, you didn't like Finn McMissile? You kidding me?
Yeah.
You didn't like him? Jeez.
Hank is fantastic, voiced by Ed O'Neill, I think. He does a fantastic job. There's also a lot of really great visual, like, in terms of like visual gags.
When he turns into the plant, yeah.
Yeah, blending into all sorts of environments is like really cool. The beluga whale using his echolocation and like the visual sequence of that, like locating Dory in the pipes. I love all that stuff. All those sequences are fucking great. And yeah, so I really enjoy all that stuff. Hank was great. I like that Dory convinces Hank to kind of just come with her into the ocean at the end. It is kind of just like done very quickly. The callback to just keep swimming isn't super necessary, and I can understand why people would be
really
like
that
reference. But I think it's handled in a wholesome enough way. It's not like callbacks. I literally wrote, it's not like the fucking callbacks in like Monsters University, where they're just like, hey, remember this character. I can understand why some people would have some issues with, there is some silly stuff, there is some stuff that is maybe unnecessary, but overall, like, the use of the characters and the narrative, it just, like, I don't know, it makes me fucking feel, it's like genuine, like, fuck, I love these, like, characters, and it's, it's a sequel to Finding Nemo, but it feels like they respect, like, Andrew Stanton respected it so much, and he did the original Finding Nemo, obviously, so he knew how to do that. I know that's going to be a controversial one. Finding Dory is like way higher up on my list than I think it would be for a lot of people. It's in the top 10. It's above Toy Story 1. So like a lot of people are going to be like,
that,
what the
fair
fuck?
Enough. Yeah, that's fine.
It really caught me off guard. I was surprised how much I liked it.
Yeah, I had a feeling it would be high. I didn't think it would be that high.
Okay, what do you have for number 6?
Number 6 is Toy Story 2.
Okie dokie. Wow, okay. Well, my number 6 is Finding Nemo.
I really, really love Finding Nemo. When I watched this movie again, I kind of didn't realize, like, oh my god, this movie is really, really good. The soundtrack, like Thomas Newman's score, is amazing. I love the visuals of this movie so much. With some weird visuals, in mind. I think this movie looks so good, it could have been made yesterday. So many great action sequences, like Bruce's whole when he smells blood and his eyes black out. This is one of Pixar's most tense movies. I remember the scene from when I was little. It scared me. And I can only imagine what this scene must mean to a parent, where he's chasing the boat and the bubbles that the boat is making. He like loses where the boat is, and he's like, "Oh my god, no! It can't be gone!" It's just what a scene.
Yeah, that shit would be super stressful.
Like I wrote in my notes, Finding Nemo turns into a horror movie for 30 seconds because it's awesome. It's so great.
I like the tank gang, the side characters of that. And that's the thing that I like about Finding Dory, is it didn't feel the need to bring them back. They're in the end, like, they're in a post-credit scene for Finding Dory, but that's like a fun little, just like, oh, here they are, by the way. But I love them all in this movie. Willem Dafoe's fantastic as Gil, the main one. A sequence with them that I wanted to mention, because I really, really like the way it's done, is the way that each tank fish reacts to the tank being dirty is really fucking cool. Because you've got Jacques, who can't clean it. He's like, he goes to try to clean it, and they're like, "Oh, don't do that. We have to keep it dirty." The germaphobe guy is freaking the fuck out. Deb, she's like looking for Flo. She's like, "Oh, where's Flo? I can't find her anywhere." So that whole the tank being dirty and the way that they are kind of interacting with it being dirty, or perceiving
stuff
it,
like
really,
that is really fun.
Really fun.
You flesh out the characters. Yeah.
I don't think there's many stories about single dads, which is a pretty cool,
Yeah. This movie is so dark, dude. The opening scene with the Barracuda, I was like, I remember that when I was little. That fucking scarred me.
And I like in this movie, the just keep swimming motif, which is like Dory's thing for a bit. It comes to a really great conclusion when they're in the net, and she's telling all the fish to just keep swimming, swim down. It's number 6 on my list, but I wouldn't be surprised. This is when I get to these movies, these top 6 are any one of these could be anyone's number 1, and I wouldn't I'd be like, yeah, that's absolutely perfect.
Same. I guess the last thing I want to mention about this is because this is a really weird bit of trivia. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the show Malcolm in the Middle. Nemo was voiced by a kid named Alexander Gould, who played a character of a one-off character of Egg in Malcolm in the Middle.
What's your name, son? Egg.
I named him.
Well, you can't keep him.
And that was funny. I thought that was the end of this comment. But then I looked in the credits, and I noticed that there was a character. There's a character, I think he's Sheldon or something. He's like a seahorse. And he is voiced by Eric Purr Sullivan, who is the voice of Dewey. Who's the kid that befriends Egg in Malcolm in the Middle.
Oh, look at me! I'm gonna go touch the butt!
It is the most obvious thing. You're watching it and you're like, oh, duh, it's Dewey. It's like you can't not hear him,
Yeah.
And it was just so weird. Anyway, that's it. That's my thoughts.
Fun little story. Yeah. Yeah, no, great movie. Okay, well, going on to number 5. What you got?
Finding Nemo.
Oh, well, there you go. My number 5 is The Incredibles.
I'm just gonna go ahead and spoil my list. This is my number 1. This is my favorite movie of all time. This isn't just my favorite Pixar movie. I've said it was Pinocchio before. Honestly, I thought about it. I watched The Incredibles more than I have any other movie in my life. This is a movie that is super special to me. It is a super deep movie. I feel like it is the deepest movie Pixar has ever done. Superheroes, like these people with this great gift, they get shunned from society because of bureaucracy, basically, And then the world turns on them, and just the way that the world of The Incredibles, it's just fascinating. I love the themes of this movie so much. To me, these themes are just, you don't see them in any other movie. Because I think this is something that is really relatable to today, where, if you look at, universities or something like that, right? All the actually intelligent people don't go to them because they've been so corrupted, and you just get, people that had their parents pay their way through university, or you get diversity hires and you get shit like that. You miss those geniuses. Same thing on YouTube. Any political people on YouTube, all the actually interesting, intelligent people get banned, and you get these trannies and people that just get corporate funding and shit. They just get pushed ahead by the system. Where all these people get pushed ahead so that the actual geniuses are being suppressed, all because of bureaucracy. There is not enough time in this video to get into it. I love those themes of the movie. But then on top of that, on top of having all of these fascinating kind of philosophical, political themes, you also just have a great action movie on the surface. So if you're someone that doesn't like the messaging of The Incredibles, or if you don't understand it, or if you don't care, you still have one of the best superhero movies ever made. Hands down. Because the action in this movie is incredible. No pun intended. It's great.
There's a lot of great scenes where they use all of their different powers to fantastic extent.
I love the scene where Dash, he runs on that island. That's what I love, is they establish in the movie, Dash is this character, run as fast as you can, she tells him at one point, and then just, you get a scene where he fucking runs as fast as he can, and it is, so awesome, and he runs on water, and the music kicks in, it's great. This is a movie I've watched this movie more than any other movie in my life. And I still get hyped for this movie so much when I watch it. It's great.
Yeah.
It's a movie I'll never get tired of watching. I'll never get tired of talking about it.
No, I really, really enjoy all of the themes of like the superhero stuff because I like the logistics of like, okay, well, what if superheroes were actually real?
It's the deconstruction of the superhero. It was like it was very inspired by Watchmen.
Because the way it's portrayed, obviously, in like DC comics or in old like Marvel comics and those movies to this day, is a very like fantastical way of looking at it for the most part. Which is fine. I don't think that's a fine way to portray superheroes as well. But I really do like the deconstruction of like, well, how would this actually work? You know, you've got politicians that want to sue them for dealing property damage and stuff like that. Whereas that's not really something that is dealt with in most superhero movies.
Yeah.
So I really, really love that shit. I don't have like a lot of other like a lot more to say about the movie just because. I mean, it's you pretty much covered a lot of the what makes the movie really great.
Oh, by the way,
really
I can't not mention that Syndrome is one of the best villains of all time. He's basically a fucking Silicon Valley nerd, right? You know, the true villains of America today. I remember, like, I watched this movie, and everyone I show it to always is surprised by him, where the scene at the end where the baby's sleeping, and he just has that devilish grin where you're like, oh my god, this guy is fucking evil.
That stuff is really great.
Jason Lee killed all the performances in this movie are fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Jason Lee as Syndrome. Samuel Jackson as Frozone is hilarious.
Yeah, he's great.
Craig Nelson is fucking, like, killing it as Mr. Incredible. I love that performance so much.
Because something that I really like, it's like a visual gag, because they still do, like, nice visual gags, especially in their earlier movies that were, like, really great. Where I just wrote, Mr. Incredible is exactly too big for any car or office cubicle, and it's fucking hilarious. And then there's a scene when Mr. Incredible is, you know, he's off doing shit on the island, and I think, you know, Helen and the kids still don't know about that stuff yet. During that whole montage of them like getting along and stuff, where I think Bob slaps Helen on the ass.
Yeah, and then she stretches her arm out to hit his butt. It's great.
Well, no, that's what I said. I said Helen either pinches Bob's ass or grabs his balls because it's not seen, but it's
nice.
Who knows which one? What could it be? Yeah. But no, I thought that was funny.
Russian roulette.
And yeah, I knew it was going to make my top 5. Anyway, well, yeah, okay, so next up, what do you got for 4?
Number 4, I have Monsters Incorporated.
Okay. My number 4 is Ratatouille. I like this movie quite a lot. I actually recently watched it again yesterday too. I had my nieces over and was watching it with them, and they loved it. I would say, in my opinion, Ratatouille is probably one of Pixar's funniest films to me.
I think it is the funniest movie they've made.
Yeah, I think it is the funniest movie they've made because there's so much like great comedy, like bits and, you know, visual gags and all sorts of stuff in this movie all over the place. From little simple stuff that makes you laugh, like, you know, Remy, like, you know, does a finger bang to like a guy on a bike with baguettes, and he crashes into the back of a car. It's fucking hilarious. And then you've got the whole scene where Linguini is asleep in the kitchen, and Remy is controlling him with sunglasses on. Yeah.
And then my favorite part is she slaps him and he spins around 360 degrees.
There's honestly, like, there's
Linguini is just, his voice is hilarious. He was voiced by a guy named Lou Romano, who is just a dude that worked at Pixar who had a funny voice.
Interesting.
He voices the principal in, not the principal, he voices the teacher in Incredibles, Bernie.
Oh, Bernie, me! This little rat is guilty!
Yeah, it's definitely, I would say it's their funniest movie. But there's also a lot of, like, really beautiful sequences. I love the whole, you know, combination of flavors and shit that Remy explains, and the visual, like, flares that it has in the background of those scenes is awesome. Remy's voiced by Patton Oswalt, and he does a fucking incredible job as Remy. And I like that in Ratatouille, there's about a, like, 30 to 40 minute period where Remy does not speak. Like, he says, like, nothing. He says, like,
because
2
him
words.
and Linguini never talk.
In a worse movie, Remy would talk to Linguini, and it would just be like some wacky, oh my gosh, you're a talking rat?
Ratatouille, to me, it's kind of miraculous, because in the like, there are a billion ways this movie could have gone wrong, because the concept is so stupid. It's a rat that can cook, but man, it is just top-notch stuff.
It is
the way
masterfully done.
This might give away my position, because I think Incredibles is my number 1, but there are little things in Ratatouille that I actually prefer over The Incredibles. There are things I think it does better. There's this quote from Stanley Kubrick where he says, you know, I forget, I'm gonna misquote him, but, you know, it's important in a movie to have, like, strong images, right? The use of images, like, you know, striking images in a person's mind, that's worth 1,000 words. That that has a very strong effect on the viewer. And I think Ratatouille, just some of the shots in this movie are more beautiful than anything, like, in most other movies I've ever seen. Like, just some moments, I'll just put some up where it's like, this is absolutely gorgeous. And that kind of stuff really resonates with you, and it sticks with you.
There's kind of like two antagonists in this movie. You've got Chef Skinner, and then you've got Anton Ego in the
Grim
half.
Eater, yeah.
I love that the conclusion to that is that his character does a complete 180 when he eats, you know, the namesake of the movie, when he has Ratatouille that Remy and all of his family and shit and Linguini serve up for him.
That's the way the movie opens. The movie opens by telling you his prejudice, you know, his idea of not anyone can cook. That's before you even know who Remy is.
And like I said, this is definitely like Pixar's funniest movie, but his review at the end is so wholesome and endearing.
It is great.
His review.
That is like one of the best moments in any film ever. On the topic of this movie not going down like stupid avenues, I really like the dad character and the brother. I feel like those characters were handled so well, because if you think about it, there's a billion ways this could have gone wrong. Like, it could have gone like Turning Red or fucking like Chicken Little or some shit where like the dad is just this cartoonishly fucking like stupid asshole. His dad, he doesn't like cooking. He doesn't like that he's a chef, but he admires the fact that his son has just grown as a person, you know, and he can see, like, I think he says, I'm talking about guts, right? Isn't that what he says? Yeah. This really means that much to you? Yeah. And it's just like, oh, that's like such a wholesome scene. I love that.
That's really
Because imagine how that could have gone wrong, right? Like, imagine you could make him just some asshole, and then finally he's like, oh, I was so wrong about it, blah, blah, you know, like...
Yeah.
Great.
That's where you get Brave and Turning Red with that bad, like, the parental child discourse where they clash with each other. That's when it's handled really well in Ratatouille. All right, number 3, what do you got?
Number 3 is WALL-E.
Okay. My number 3 is Toy Story 2.
Even though it's a bit lower on my list, Toy Story 2 is a movie that I absolutely just adore. When I watched this movie again, I watched the movie again in anticipation of the first list that I did, you know, where I watched all these movies through. I had a big stupid grin on my face the whole time I was watching it, because I watched this movie a lot when I was little, and watching it again was just like a huge trip down memory lane. And I noticed all the stuff that I didn't notice before. Like, there were just scenes that blew me away. Just Jesse's, like, the song, you know, When Somebody Loved Me with Jesse, which was just like
that was good. That was a good change from Toy Story 1 to 2, where they got somebody else to do that instead of Randy Newman doing the song. Because it's definitely a lot better with.
He wrote the song.
Oh yeah,
he wrote the song, but yeah, it's Sarah McLachlan, I think her name is. Another one was I remember after Jesse's song, Woody goes to let himself out.
How long will it last, Woody? Do you really think Andy is going to take you to college? Or on his honeymoon? Andy's growing up, and there's nothing you can do about it.
I loved the energy, the wholesomeness of this movie. It was just so nice to revisit. That opening sequence in particular, I loved it when I was little, and I loved it here. I was so happy.
I literally have written down as my first note, I really love the opening scene. Brings back so much nostalgia. Even there was a Buzz Lightyear cartoon show that was like on when I was younger that I would like watch here and there, and it like reminded me of like how old I was, like, you know, what I was doing in school at the time. It just like fucking puts my body in another place in time. It's like my mind is like time traveling back to when I like saw this movie and watched the cartoon show. And it's interesting to me that, like, you know, they did that in the second movie, and now they're actually making a movie called Lightyear that is that, which is, you know, we're not going to get into that too much. Yeah.
Things can't get any worse.
You're wrong. It's about to get worse than you can even imagine.
We're not going to get into Lightyear, really, because it doesn't exist yet. It's not out. We're not going to see it, probably.
That's what he means to say, yeah.
This is something, because I loved this scene even when I was a kid, even though nothing really fast-paced happens. But I wrote down, cleaning scene is kid's introduction to porn. Because
that scene is great. I love that. I remember.
Yeah, the detailing and everything is just like...
I was thinking that is one of my earliest memories of watching a movie and it having a deep scene where, like, it was a scene where not much was happening, but I was really, really
You're
invested.
like glued to the screen, yeah.
Yes, because normally, like with when you're a kid, like they start talking, they get more serious, and that's where you kind of like you fall asleep, you don't pay attention as much, you zone out. But with that, I remember I was glued to the screen.
But yeah, obviously
I disavow all Coomers, but I'm a retired Coomer. I don't do that anymore. Yeah. I disavow.
But dirt and scuff marks still appear on all the toys, including in detail that the fake Buzz is much cleaner than the real Buzz.
Yes.
Which is like a way to also, identify between them is really cool. Insanely huge jump in animation quality and fluidity.
It's incredible.
From not just Toy Story, but from Toy Story and A Bug's Life to Toy Story 2. The difference between Scud and Buster is like night
massive.
And day. Yeah, it's fucking crazy. Okay, so before I go ahead with my number 2, I just want to preface this, Michael, this is for the video and for you, that I am not doing this just for shock value. This isn't just to like make it a shocking twist or anything like that. I genuinely feel this way, and I told you earlier that there were 2 movies in particular that I wanted to rewatch.
I had a feeling this was coming.
When
you said
for
that,
something
I had
like
a
this.
feeling.
So I had to confirm that the way I feel was true. Was like I could be like, yes, I really do feel this way, and that's why my number 2 is Monsters Inc.
Okay, so we know what number 1 is, but before we get to that, let's get to number 2.
Monsters Inc. is, like, fantastic. Before Michael kind of, roped me into this whole thing, made me watch all these Pixar movies, which, it's been a really great experience and sometimes a, lesser experience.
It's been overall, a Cars 2 experience, yeah.
Yeah, overall, I'd say I'm pretty positive on the whole experience.
To say, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has been a collision of worlds. Regardless, I have enjoyed, watching through all this stuff, and before embarking on this journey of watching all 25 Pixar movies in release order, Monsters Inc. was my number 1 by far. You knew that, I think a lot of other people that we talked to knew that. Monsters Inc. I consider my favorite Pixar movie of all time. Absolutely loved it. I still love it to this day. It's number 2. The premise for Monsters Inc. was insanely incredible, because that's when you had the reviews for Inside Out saying it was the most unique original premise ever, which it really wasn't, but because of the time it came out, that's fair. And it is still, Inside Out is still a really great movie. But Monsters Inc. is truly an insanely unique premise, because I don't think any other movie or book or song, I could be wrong, but if you can find something, fucking let me know. But the premise of a city full of monsters that rely on their energy to power the lights in their house, their cars, and everything is entirely from using doors as portals into the human world and getting children to scream. They use children's screams as their power source, which is such a fucking insanely unique premise. Yeah. I love that shit so much.
Yeah. Harnessing the screams of children to power your fucking society. That's sick.
And then I know I'm skipping ahead quite a bit, but I love that, right near the end, because it's hinted at a few times in the movie when you've got Boo, who is honestly probably one of the most adorable characters in a Pixar movie ever. Yeah. Boo is so wholesome. They were getting screams from kids to power the city, but then they figure out that laughs are actually way more powerful, and that's a nice fun, friendly, family friendly way to conclude something like that really gives it a wholesome end. And there's a lot of great stuff that at the end, they've got it's got the number of kids scared is changed, number of kids amused, which is really great. I love that sort of detail. It's an incredibly funny movie. Randall is one of the most sadistic Pixar villains. His plot with what he wants to do is fucked up. He wants to put kids in that fucking chair in front of the scream extractor.
Can you believe that was all because he got bullied at college?
Yeah,
I can't believe it, man. That's so fucked up. That's also why he said the winds of change. There's a poster in his room that says winds of change. Yeah. Monsters Incorporated uses its characters incredibly well. I really love the characters of this movie. Sully is great. He's kind of the generic character, he's the altruistic good guy. But what I like is, even though he's doing a good thing, he is very, I don't want to say selfish exactly, but he's very just focused on himself, and he kind of takes down people around him, I love the dynamic between him and Mike Wazowski, because Mike, he is most of us in this situation. He is looking out for himself. But he is also just trying to do, the best by his friend. He doesn't like the kid at first. He's let's just dump her in some door. It doesn't matter, and then eventually he learns to care about her too. They're in the cave with the abominable snowman. which is a great character, like one of John Ratzenberger's best performances ever. Oh, Sully's the good guy because he's trying to get Boo. Mike's the bad guy because he doesn't want to do it. But it's like, you really feel for him. We're like saying, like, you know, hey man, like Celia,
don't I
you know,
matter?
like don't I matter? None of it matters, you know. Celia, I'm never gonna see her again. It's like, damn, dude, that's deep.
The final shot of the movie is fucking pure, concentrated, wholesome juice. It's just a very simple shot. He rebuilds the door, he opens it up, and he's, you know, Boo, and then you just hear her say, Kitty, and then he, looks at her, and his face lights up, and it's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
That's so fucking, like, nice. I love that shit. Now we're on to the final Pixar movie we're going to talk about in this video.
We've already figured out mine's The Incredibles, and yours
Michael's
is...
The Incredibles, and my number one pick for my favorite Pixar movie is WALL-E. Holy shit, this was like fucking, I am so happy. I just, I know
it was
I'm
worth Cars 2?
to talk already.
Yeah.
It was worth Cars 2. This movie was like...
Hey, Liam, what if I said there was no video, I just wanted you to watch Cars 2?
Yeah, I would have fucking screamed.
But you would have seen WALL-E.
I would have, though. But yeah, no, that's what I'm saying, like, had it not been for you inviting me to do this with you and doing this, I probably never would have watched WALL-E. I mean... maybe in like
because you had not seen this movie before this video.
I had not seen this movie. It was the one other than Cars. I hadn't seen Cars either, but
classic Pixar
the original
movie that you hadn't seen,
premises that I had never seen. I was absolutely fucking blown away by this movie. I fucking like loved every second of it. I don't know if I can really say anything bad about it at all. I absolutely love it. Yeah. This has my favorite soundtrack of any other Pixar movie, and I think other people who are a fan of this series as well will probably see some of the similarities, but I'm a real big fan of Fallout, and the 50s music with like that sort of aesthetic with like an abandoned post-apocalyptic world is like, I fucking love that premise so much. That's like one of my favorite settings for like anything. And you got
the opening shots of WALL-E are fucking incredible.
They're fantastic. With that song.
That blew me away when I watched that, where I was like,
yeah.
I don't remember this movie. What the fuck? This is so good.
Yeah. There was a trailer for Fallout New Vegas with an iBot, which is like a robot in those games, that it actually looks like a Sputnik satellite. That's what they're designed after. And it's flying through like the wasteland in Fallout, playing like a song. And it feels a lot like WALL-E, like traveling around playing it on his thing. That was something I was going to mention, because it's not done in any other Pixar movie. They do a really great, they seamlessly blend live action with animation, which I love, because like the CEO of By and Large is like really funny and like, yeah. But I feel like people tend to overblow the point of the movie being about like consumerism and that sort of shit, and like, you know, I think getting too comfortable and stuff like that.
Liam's making a really good point here, and I kind of brushed past it in the video, so allow me to repeat it for him. Much like The Incredibles, the political themes are just an aspect of WALL-E. So even if you don't care about that stuff, you can still enjoy the movie anyway. It is, at its heart, a love story. I think what I like is that it's unique in the way that it handles it. There is a really good video that I'll mention. It's political, you know, some people probably won't like me mentioning this, but there's this guy named Endeavor who made a video, I forget what it's called, it's like, is WALL-E a reactionary movie or something like that, where he kind of goes over the political themes of WALL-E. The way that WALL-E explores environmentalism is very different from like the typical environmentalist stuff that you hear. And it's also the way it explores consumerism is also unique. I'm going to gloss over it, kind of. I'm going to make it quick, but you can just go watch this guy's video if you want to know more. Human beings are going to suffer spiritually. You know, it makes a more spiritual argument for that. The idea that, you know, human beings being taken out of their natural environment is a bad thing. That's a very, very relevant idea to today.
Yeah, and that's
especially with fucking Mark Zuckerberg's trying to recreate the fucking Axiom. You know, he's trying to make fucking, what is it, Metaverse or whatever the shit he's coming up with.
I would watch a movie, like I would watch a 2-hour movie that's just the first like 30 minutes of this movie.
Yes.
I just watch a little robot walking around with a little cockroach buddy, just collecting shit and like finding like old tapes and music.
That is a drop off with this movie. Everybody loves the first like 30 or so minutes of this movie, and then the second act tends to lose a lot of people. That's honestly, I really like that. I almost prefer
I love it too.
Yeah, I almost prefer it, but yeah, I really, really like that aspect of the movie. I like that it changes. I like that the setting is different. I like that the dialogue kind of it becomes more like a normal movie. That ending, by the way, the fucking ending shot of Wall-E is incredible. When you go over it's like, oh, did humanity fucking like what's gonna happen next? And you just see vegetation on the hills, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
there it is.
I wrote, for barely being able to speak, Wall-E conveys like more emotions than like any fucking character in any Cars movie. Like, Wall-E is such like a little, like an endearing and charming little character. And
he's a box with like eyes. That's his whole character
design. He's a box with eyes, and he says like 3 words in total. But he's really, really expressive. Like, the eyes, I know I've watched a video with Andrew Stanton talking about it, and he was watching like a baseball game, and he had binoculars, and he like missed like a whole fucking like quarter of the game just because he was like looking at the binoculars and like twisting them and shit like that. And that's where he got the idea to like for Wall-E's design, from a pair of binoculars.
Yeah, interesting.
Because since watching it, I've watched a lot of interviews and shit with Andrew Stanton talking about his ideas for Wall-E and why he made it and stuff like that. Because I've just been like, I've been secretly obsessed with this. This has been like the hardest like kept secret in like a long time, because we'd be getting into calls and shit and talking about movies, and I'm like, I really want to say like Wall-E was fucking incredible, but I have to have a poker face until we get to the video. I just absolutely loved it. And the scene at the end where Wall-E's kind of scavenging pays off. He's not just like, he hasn't just been doing this for no reason. It actually has like a payoff at the end, because Eve takes him back to his like little bunker and finds like all the replacement parts that he's found to put him back together. And then when she does the little fucking zap...
That's also... That's foreshadowed in the beginning of the movie, because he sees one of the other Wall-Es, and he has, like, self-preservation instincts in him that these other robots didn't.
Yeah, Wall-E's been doing this for so long. Been collecting shit like music that you hear, the opening song, Put On Your Sunday Clothes, which is great. Great introduction to the movie. And the movie that's from, that he plays, which I like, is on, like, this tiny little iPod, and then he has this screen that he brings down that magnifies it.
Yeah.
And he's like looking at them holding hands, and he like clutches his own hands together, and it's just like, oh,
yeah, there you go.
Oh my heart. And he's like, he so badly wants to hold Eve's hand like all throughout the movie. It's like, it's so adorable. Yeah. I love their interactions together. Like, they have incredibly fantastic chemistry for being 2 robots that barely speak. When she fixes him at the end, and he's just like going back to routine, like he's lost like all that, and then she. Eve, I
love the idea of his sentience being some kind of, malfunction. That's really interesting. Yeah. His free will. That's so cool.
Because Wall-E, like, he not only he has the free will in himself, but he has a profound and great impact on everybody that he interacts with.
Yeah.
Like he
even the little robot that waves.
Yeah. There's like, it's like a little robot that's purpose is to like press buttons, and he has a great impact on like the captain and shit with like the dirt, and he analyzes it. And computer define dancing, and then that whole sequence with the music, and they're floating through space.
Yeah.
Oh, bro, that shit. I can
tell you really like this movie. Yeah.
Oh, it was so fucking good. Like, genuinely, I fucking love this movie so much.
It was worth Cars 2.
Yeah. It was worth Cars 2. I can't say anything like. I'm struggling to speak. So, I can't put into words how much I fucking love this movie. It's so good. One real quick thing I'd like to mention as well too. I almost forgot. This movie doesn't, as something I like as well, is this movie doesn't really even have like an antagonist for the most part.
There's Otto, but he's more of a symbol for the system.
Yes,
the real villain is the system that just it's doing what it should, It's keeping them consuming, keeping them buying, blah,
keeping
blah, blah.
them safe, and keeping them safe to an extent.
Yes.
And that's just, Otto's just programmed to, like, do that. He is not like a, I know the captain says mutiny, but he's not, like, Otto isn't acting out of emotion or anger or, like, it's not evil, it's just, that's what it's been programmed to do. And I didn't think, when it got to, like, the stuff with the humans, I wasn't sure I was going to like it as much, but I really love, you've got John Ratzenberger's character, who's just called John, and Mary, because after they interact with Wall-E, they get, like, disconnected from their, like, the fucking screens they're always looking at, and they kind of go off on their own and shit like that, and One
scene in that movie that really amazes me is, because it's funny, right? Like, they've achieved their goal of, you know, because I mentioned this with Cars. It's like they wanted to make non-human looking characters, completely artificial characters. They wanted to give them a personality. Cars walked so WALL-E could fucking run around the world 5 times.
Could fucking,
you know what I mean?
Sprint at the speed of light, yeah.
Yeah. Because WALL-E fucking, he's in the hollow detector. He puts the plant in there, right? And then fucking Otto, he's holding it up, and Otto fucking pushes it and it crushes him. It fucking squishes him. I remember like actually doing that. Yeah, I was like actually like, holy shit. Whereas like he fucking died. He got squished. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Violent in a way, even though it's a box with eyes, you know, it was incredible.
Yeah. It's a box.
It's a cube. Yeah, just a cube got squished, but I was just like, oh my god, it actually like fucking made my heart fucking skip a beat.
The only other thing that I'll mention, because like I said, this is my favorite soundtrack. I love WALL-E kind of chasing after Eve in the beginning, where she's like kind of ignoring him at first, and there's a really great version of La Vie en Rose by Louis Armstrong.
Yes.
Which is fantastic. Eve, you know, once she's shown the plant, she fucking takes it, and then she goes into fucking hibernation mode because she's got the plant secured. And so WALL-E's like taking her out, you know, all around the place anyway and stuff like that. And the song that plays during that is really cute. It's like ba ba da ba ba ba. Yeah. And I'll cap it off on that. WALL-E is it's my favorite Pixar movie. I watched it for the first time in doing this list, and I was absolutely blown away that I had to watch it again. I watched Monsters Inc. and then it back to back just to make sure I was like, I gotta be certain. I
actually fucking love this movie this much.
But yeah, it is. I fucking loved it so much.
Alright folks, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm gonna put up my list and Liam's list one more time. Let us know which list you like better in the comments, although it would be preferred if you commented on Odyssey or sent me an email. If you'd like to stay up to date with my stuff, best way to do that is to check the website and follow me via RSS. And if you don't know what RSS is, I have a whole article on the website all about that. Thanks for watching, I'll catch you next time, and here's a meme.
Stay with him till the doctor arrives.
Move it! Come on, Martin, get on! No!